Formula One on 5 Live.
Good evening and welcome along to live coverage of the Mexico City Grand Prix. It's round 20 of the Formula One World Championship with just 5 rounds left to go, including this afternoon's race, which we're less than 15 minutes away from lights out. 20 cars taking to the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez circuit for 71 laps of racing with a mixture of long straights and high-speed corners. We've seen quite a few incidents so far in the build-up to the weekend. This is a tough place, not just on the track but off it as well. The highest circuit on the calendar at over 2,000 metres above sea level altitude, another factor to bear in mind for both driver and car. We've got Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari on pole position, alongside him the man who leads the Drivers' Championship by 57 points, Max Verstappen, ahead of his nearest rival Lando Norris, who starts third. Not to mention we also have an enticing three-way fight for the team's championship between McLaren, Red Bull and Ferrari. Hopefully that's enough to whet your appetite, and to guide you through every step of the way is myself, Harry Benjamin. Alongside me in the box is McLaren Formula E driver Sam Bird and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. Sam, have I built it up enough? We've got a lot to watch out for over the course of 71 laps.
I'm excited for this one, Harry. I cannot wait for the run down to turn 1. We've been discussing it in the commentary booth on who is going to get out of turn 2 in the lead, and I think we all disagree with each other on who might get to the exit of turn 2 in the lead.
All the drivers still on the grid. Lando Norris just stood next to his McLaren car, getting the last bit of fluids in, staying hydrated. Indeed, air temperature 19.8 degrees Celsius, track temperature approaching 40 degrees as well. The sun is shining, the grandstands are packed, and this is going to be a big race for Lando Norris. 57 points is a big gap. He needs to finish at the very least ahead of Verstappen.
Well, I think he needs to win this race and hope Verstappen either has an issue or finishes outside of the podium places to have a big points advantage with regards to this race, in the hope that he can take it to the final race or 2 races.
Well, let's hear from Lando Norris. Second in the Drivers' Championship, starts third for the Mexico City Grand Prix.
Lando Norris, please tell me, how has been the reception of Mexico this year?
It's unbelievable. Every year it's very crazy to be here, so we say a big thank you to all of the fans which turn up and make it very exciting and a lot of fun.
You have Carlos and Max in front of you. What is the strategy to overtake them?
It's tough. There's not an easy answer, but I'm sure it'll be a good race to watch today, I hope.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Lando Norris speaking to Giselle Zarur there a little earlier on the parade lap. I suppose the stats are in Norris's favour. Indeed, in 3 of the last 4 Mexico City Grand Prix, the man that has gone on to win has started from third, because that long run down, slipstream, can be really crucial. It's over 800 metres to turn 1, so actually if you're starting on pole position, it's not the most beneficial.
No, it's not. I mean, it is a long stretch down to turn 1, you're right, but I think for Lando Norris this afternoon, he's not just fighting Max Verstappen. You've got the 2 red cars with Carlos Sainz starting on pole, Charles Leclerc starting directly behind him in 4th. The Ferrari's looking probably the fastest car out there this weekend.
Indeed. Andrew Benson, the BBC's F1 correspondent, is with us now. Norris is kind of all on his own up there in third as well. He's got Piastri all the way back in 17th. But Lando was asked there in an interview, does he have any idea on strategy? He wasn't really sure, at least wasn't really willing to give the answer. What are we expecting for this Grand Prix?
It's normally a one-stop, Harry, but safety car chances are reasonably high, and that can mix things up on strategy. We're expecting a one-stop with the medium and the hard tyres. It's about 22 seconds for a pit stop. People further down the grid can choose pretty much any tyre they want. Last year, by the way, Lando Norris started in 17th place, which is exactly where his teammate Oscar Piastri starts this year, and came up to 5th by starting on a soft, stopping early and getting some clear air to run as fast as he possibly could in. But I would expect the top runners to do a one-stop.
Now, Max Verstappen, a 5-time winner around here, starts in second, obviously off the back of the US Grand Prix, where, well, the overtake that Lando Norris did on Max Verstappen going going off the track and then coming back on, was given a penalty. Driver guidelines, racing guidelines, that's in the background of everyone's thoughts. How do you think Verstappen is going to approach racing, not only in lap 1 but throughout this Grand Prix?
He said that he wasn't going to change, but the guidelines are changing. The only thing is they haven't changed yet. But what was clear from the drivers' briefing on Friday, with BBC Sport revealed that the FIA were going to change the guidelines after that meeting, was that most of the drivers feel that Verstappen's default defence, when he cares, because he hasn't always cared this year, but when he's against Norris, for example, and the championship's on the line, he does chuck it up the inside. Doesn't matter whether you're going to go off the track on the exit and take your rival with you. That's what I'm going to do. Basically, the other drivers don't think that's fair, and they want the guidelines rewritten so that isn't allowed, whereas in the current guidelines it kind of is. And that's what we saw in Austin last weekend. Verstappen braked late enough to get to the apex first, which was what the current guidelines define as, that means that's then his corner, and then he just drove Norris and himself off the track. It's a bit different around Mexico because there are track limits issues in Mexico. There's grass on the outside of turn 1, for example, which is the usual overtaking place, although you can do it down to turn 4. But it's going to be interesting to see how the stewards judge incidents. So the rules haven't changed, but people's understanding of what should be allowed has. Will the stewards take a different view as a result?
That will be a really intriguing one. We often see people getting pushed out wide and rejoining, going through turns 1 and 2. It's a right-hander turn 1, then into a quick left-hander 2, out through the right-hander of turn 3 before the next short straight leads you down to turn 4. We'll see how that plays out for Max Verstappen, who has won the last 3 Mexico City Grand Prix, all by a margin of at least 13 seconds. But last time out, he was 19 seconds off the Ferraris, who were 1 and 2 in Austin. Charles Leclerc leading the way on that occasion. But Sam, today in Mexico, it's Carlos Sainz on pole position, and he was mighty in qualifying yesterday.
He looked so comfortable from the beginning of qualifying, didn't he? Did a great job in Q3, 2 laps worthy of that pole position. So will Carlos Sainz be able to hold it? Well, we'll find out in 71 laps, won't we, Harry?
It's a bittersweet moment for Sainz, though, isn't it? Getting pole position and this seeming run of form that Ferrari are finding again towards the end of the year, that he feels that he's very much been a part of and seen the progression of. It's teeing it up nicely for next year, but of course he's not going to be a Ferrari driver next year.
No, he's not, but I think he understands the position that Ferrari were in. If Lewis Hamilton comes knocking on Ferrari's door, Ferrari are going to take him, as he's technically, well, on paper, the greatest racing driver of all time. Carlos Sainz is in great form, and he's doing a great job for Ferrari, and he deserves to keep his space there. But yeah, when Lewis Hamilton is on the market, Ferrari are going to come and take him.
Charles Leclerc, his teammate, starts in 4th. It's the 8th time he started behind Sainz this year. And Andrew, actually, this is quite big for the Constructors' Championship as well, isn't it? Both Ferraris up there. Indeed, Ferrari only 8 points behind Red Bull for second in the Constructors.
Yeah, it's a 3-way fight. And actually, Charles Leclerc, after winning in Austin last weekend, was saying that Ferrari are targeting the Constructors' Championship. It's a long shot for them, but not that much of a long shot, especially right now with going into this race with their two cars in the top 4, and Verstappen and Norris's teammates right down towards the back of the grid. They've got a real chance to make some ground in the Constructors. It could be really, really close at the end of this race as a result. I quite fancy Charles Leclerc for the win. He's been the quickest on race pace so far this weekend, although it's been a bit difficult because of various things to do with testing and practice and what have you, to be absolutely sure. The only problem is that overtaking is really difficult around this circuit because of the thin air.
Yeah, it certainly is. The altitude over 2,000 metres above sea level. We will come on to more discussions, including the Mercedes drivers and those out of position further down the field before lights out at 8 o'clock this evening. But before we do all that, just enough time to check in with the latest news headlines with Fraser Dainton.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live Formula 1.
Welcome back to live coverage of the Mexico City Grand Prix. It's round 20 of the Formula One World Championship with just 5 rounds to go, including this afternoon's race, which gets underway in just a few moments' time. Guiding you through all the action is myself, Harry Benjamin, McLaren Formula E driver Sam Bird, and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. We've discussed already, Sam, those runners and riders at the top of the field, but if we just go further back, a couple of cars out of position, particularly Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. He's starting in 17th, and a really miserable day for the home hero Sergio Perez in the Red Bull starts just behind him. What can they do from there?
Well, I see Oscar Piastri moving up quite nicely, quite quickly. He's been really decisive with his overtakes this year. I worry a bit more for Sergio Perez. I don't feel like he's on the best of form. I still think that he might get a point or two.
5th Q1 knockout of the season for Sergio Perez. Has been on the podium here twice before. Not last year, though, after a move around the outside on lap 1 of turn 1 saw him collide with Charles Leclerc, and that was the Mexican's race done. He won't be wanting to do that again. Let's fast forward briefly back up to the front of the grid. Andrew, a quick one on the 2 Mercedes drivers. George Russell once again starts ahead of Lewis Hamilton, but it's been a bit of a weird few days for Mercedes.
Lots of crashes for the Mercedes drivers in recent days. Russell and Hamilton in different car specs. Russell looked really good on this car spec in Austin in the race. I don't think Hamilton's that confident. Let's see how they get on.
Indeed. Well, we will run down the full grid in just a few moments' time, but we're setting up for 71 laps of racing around the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez circuit, over 2,000 metres above sea level, over 4.3 kilometres in length. That's just over 2.6 miles, 17 corners, 7 to the left and 10 to the right. We've got Drivers' Championship still to play for, and a Constructors' Championship 3-way battle as well. Lots to look out for this evening. It's time for the Mexico City Grand Prix. Pole position, his 6th career pole. It's the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Alongside him, the Red Bull driver Max Verstappen. Lando Norris starts 3rd, ahead of Charles Leclerc in 4th, with George Russell leading the Mercedes in the top 5. Hamilton is 6th, ahead of Kevin Magnussen in 7th for Haas. Pierre Gasly starts 8th for Alpine, in front of the Williams driver Alex Albon, with Nico Hülkenberg in the other Haas starting in 10th. Yuki Tsunoda in the RB starts 11th, ahead of his teammate Liam Lawson, with Fernando Alonso celebrating his 400th Grand Prix weekend. Starting from 13th, his teammate Stroll is just behind. Valtteri Bottas rounds out the top 15 for Sauber, with Oscar Piastri in the McLaren with moves to make, starting from 17th, ahead of Sergio Perez. 19th on the grid will be Zhou Guanyu, and from the pit lane, the Alpine of Esteban Ocon. Well, the formation lap then underway. Over 400,000 people have come to this circuit to see, well, Sergio Perez and indeed 20 drivers race it out over the course of the next couple of hours. But as we gear up on the formation lap, Sam, what are the drivers doing within the cockpits?
Well, firstly, they're managing their tyres, getting them into the perfect temperature window, not only ready for the start, but ready for the first lap itself, making sure they've got heat in the brakes as well, but not overdoing the brakes. You don't want to overheat them and cook them while you sit there on the start line for the best part of 30 seconds. The start is going to be critical, though, Harry. Really, really critical. We could see any of the top 4 or 5 lead this race after the first corner.
Yeah, let's just bring you up to speed as well with how the drivers in the Constructors' Championship do sit. It is 57 points between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc is only 22 points behind Lando Norris in 3rd. Piastri and Sainz round out the top 5. And then in the Teams' Championship, McLaren sitting pretty, 40 points clear ahead of Red Bull, with Ferrari just 8 points behind them in 3rd. Mercedes and Aston Martin round out the top 5. And then there's a brilliant battle going on in the midfield, currently being headed up by the Haas team. 2 cars in the top 10. They're sitting pretty in 6th ahead of RB, just 2 points separate them, with Williams, Alpine and Sauber making up the rest of the field as they gear up on that start-finish straight. Let's just bring up to speed the latest action from the Premier League earlier today. Arsenal drew 2-2 with Liverpool. Liverpool now 1 point off leaders Man City. Arsenal 5 from the top. You can see further analysis of that over on the BBC Sport website. But right now, we're gearing up for the Mexico City Grand Prix. Andrew, in terms of tyres ahead of this race, what are we talking?
Everyone in the top 10 is on the medium. No one's chosen the soft. Oscar Piastri, interestingly, is on the medium in 17th place. Sergio Perez on the 18th on the hard, obviously aiming to run long, but very clearly the medium's the optimum tyre choice for the start of the teams, think.
Expecting then a one-stop strategy from Pirelli, but it's a long wait for Carlos Sainz on the front row of the grid. On the back, it's Sergio Perez and Zhou Guanyu. Ocon from the pit lane, the green flag flies. It's all eyes to the lights, and it will be foot to the floor as we go racing in Mexico City. And it's an even start from the front row, but it's Verstappen who gets alongside Sainz. Verstappen will have the inside line. Norris is trying to follow Verstappen and get into the slipstream. Charles Leclerc is heading to the outside. Sainz late on the brakes. We've got an RB spinning out into the runoff area. Verstappen and Sainz almost collide. Sainz is forced to take to the runoff area. He cuts the grass and rejoins in the lead. Sainz ahead of Max Verstappen, but the RB of Yuki Tsunoda having big contact in the middle of the pack and falling by the wayside.
Yeah, I think Sainz has done the right thing there. He's tucked up behind Max Verstappen, given that place back. He used the grass runoff as he felt like he was carrying too much speed into turn 1, but he's given the place back. Max Verstappen leads the Mexican Grand Prix.
Max Verstappen then does indeed lead, as Yuki Tsunoda said. He's okay on the radio. The two Mercedes going toe-to-toe earlier on. Hamilton has gotten ahead of George Russell, but the safety car is now out. Just halfway through lap 1 of 71 for the Mexico City Grand Prix. Verstappen leads Sainz, Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton, the top 5. But a big incident then for the RB driver, Yuki Tsunoda, who is out of his car, shaking his head. The car looking a little worse for wear, but he, the driver, is now in the back of the medical car. Not the start he would have wanted to his Mexico City Grand Prix. And actually, he is not the only one out either. Alex Albon in the Williams has pulled over. We'll have to get another look of that opening lap incident, but 2 cars out would suggest that perhaps they've had a little coming together. Tsunoda started 11th, Albon started 9th, and Sam, well, we're getting a look at the start, and if we just cast our eyes a little towards the back of the pack, we might be able to see what happened to Tsunoda.
Can't really see it from the angle we've just seen, but it looks like Tsunoda's car is in a completely straight line. I think that Albon might have squeezed him on the edge of the track. Going to the movers and shakers in the pack, it looks like actually Sergio Perez has made the best start of everybody, making 5 places up to P13 on those hard tyres. So really good start from Sergio Perez.
Lap 2 of 71 of the Mexico City Grand Prix under safety car, halfway through lap 1 for an incident that involved the RB of Yuki Tsunoda. Alex Albon in the Williams also looking to be out of this race. Verstappen leads, Carlos Sainz in 2nd, Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc maintaining their starting positions in 3rd and 4th. Hamilton getting ahead of his teammate Russell 5th and 6th. The 2 Haas cars with good starts. Magnussen holding 7th, Hulkenberg up to 8th ahead of Gasly. Liam Lawson in now the sole remaining RB, currently rounds out the point scorers in 10th. Then comes Stroll, Alonso is 12th, and you're right, Sam, Sergio Perez has made gains from 18th on the grid all the way up to 13th in front of Franco Colapinto. Then comes Bottas in 15th in front of his teammate Joe. Piastri has stayed where he started in 17th. Ocon from the pit lane is up and right at the back of the field in 18th, with Albon now out of the car and out of this race. Not what Williams needed, not what RB needed, especially when they're in such a thick fight in the mid-pack.
It's just not what Yuki Tsunoda needed this weekend, with the rumours swirling about Sergio Perez's future. He wanted to be the man in that seat. Now he's got a test coming up at the end of the season, and he was hoping to be in that car next year. Let's take another look at the start, Harry, and Max Verstappen off the line very, very well. If we look a little bit further back, can we see Yuki Tsunoda pulls to the outside and just it was actually the Alpine of Gasly that squeezed Albon that then pinched into Yuki Tsunoda. I don't think Yuki Tsunoda really knew anything about that, and it's a shame really, because he's shown really good pace this weekend. He made a mistake in qualifying, but that one there, I don't think anybody can really blame him.
This is the sound of Yuki Tsunoda. It almost reminds me a little bit about that big Silverstone crash a couple of years ago that involved Zhou Guanyu. Nowhere near as dramatic, but Albon's on the right-hand side as Tsunoda is almost squeezed onto the grass, and under braking, Tsunoda goes late on the brakes, and his rear right makes contact with the front left of Albon, who is being squeezed by the Alpine of Pierre Gasly, who is to Albon's right. And did Gasly just list slightly over to the left? Was there a bit more room for Gasly to move? And at the end of it, Tsunoda is sent spinning around. Indeed, the whole tyre carcass falling off the RB.
Oh, I mean, those cars were in such close proximity. I think it was a little bit unnecessary, really. I know everybody wants to make big moves on the first lap, but to finish first you got to finish, and that's, I mean, he was so late on the brakes there, Tsunoda, as well.
Okay, just stop where you can.
That was the sound of Alex Albon's radio, a second lap 1 retirement this year. And we're just getting another look from the rear view of Kevin Magnussen's car, who was ahead of all of them. Now, Gasly had more room to his right-hand side, but it is also lap 1 going down to turn 1. I find that difficult to put firm blame on anybody there, but that was what was going on right in the middle of the pack. Up front, it was an even start between Verstappen and Sainz. Verstappen had the inside line, and they were going 3, nearly 4 wide just behind them. Hamilton managing to go wheel to wheel with George Russell through turns 2 and 3. Indeed, ended up coming out on top.
So what was interesting there was that the very initial launch for Sainz and Verstappen was almost identical, but Verstappen's car then gained a lot of ground very quickly, and he was alongside Sainz quite early on the straight, Sam, wasn't he? And then Lando Norris behind got quite a good tow, as did Charles Leclerc behind Sainz, but Sainz shot off Leclerc on the outside, and Verstappen was positioning his car so Norris couldn't get down the inside, so they were kind of a bit stuck, the two behind.
Yeah, the second phase of Verstappen's start was what got him the lead, wasn't it? And they then, as we see a replay now, Perez instant false start under investigation. He's outside of his start box. Well, he's actually in front. So regulations state that your front tyres must be on the white line and no further, and he's clearly beyond that.
You saw it first though, Sam, didn't you? Perez made up a lot of ground. He didn't go out, he didn't go before the lights went out. That would be a slam dunk full start, but he is well over the grid box line, and indeed was darting left and right down the inside into turn 1.
So unnecessary. So unnecessary. I mean, I know you're always trying to gain an inch or even a millimetre in Formula 1, but your home Grand Prix as well.
It's half a car's length over the line, really, wasn't it? All pretty much. It's not. I mean, there's no excuse for that. He's had a really bad weekend at his home Grand Prix, hasn't he? And I think I'd be very surprised if there's not a penalty for that.
He is under investigation.
Just an update, our start is under investigation.
Why?
It says full start on the race control messages.
No, it was a great start.
No, it was a great start, is what Sergio Perez says.
Come on, Checo. You can't not have seen that.
The other thing is they sort of have allowed the eyesight of the sight of line to be a little bit better with that long yellow strip peeking out.
Yeah, so we have a yellow line that is before the white line of the box, and us drivers look down at this yellow line that protrudes out the either side of the box, the starting grid box, and they are difficult to see, but 19 other drivers managed to see it.
The other thing is that, Sam, on the inside and outside of the track, they have little bollards showing them where to stop. So because the lines are so difficult to see because of these these cars since 2022 with the sort of, they've got bigger wheels and they've got sort of wheel fairings above the wheels. That has made visibility much more difficult. You remember Fernando Alonso had a bit of an issue with the start in Saudi Arabia last year. People have been talking about it, and from that incident with Alonso, they did add these extra things that would help the drivers see where where they're going. But he's a good metre and a half forward of the white line, so I can't see. And he you could see what effect that had because he was on the cars in front of him in a split second.
But also, each team has the ability to go on board with their car if they're using certain, TV outlets. So there is nothing stopping Red Bull viewing where his car is starting the race.
That's the voice of the McLaren Formula E driver Sam Bird, alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, is the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson.
The drink is spinning. Oh, I'm doing zigzag, so I need to drink even if I don't want to.
Okay. So that's Charles Leclerc's radio in the Ferrari with drink issues. When you've got the drink in the car, Sam, I mean, how often do you experience these kind of issues where it's spilling out? It's not the first time we've had issues like this.
It doesn't happen all the time. I've actually had it at Le Mans in a Ferrari where it just continuously spilled into my mouth during a double stint, and that wasn't particularly fun. It is off-putting. You learn to live with it, but to be sort of force-fed fluid, it's not. It's like a torture.
Just water in there, or just jazz it up a bit?
Let's just go with water.
Water.
Yeah, it's the right answer.
It is the right option. You're listening to 5 Live's coverage of the Mexico City Grand Prix. We're currently under safety car conditions, halfway through lap 1. That safety car came out after a turn 1 incident that involved the RB of Yuki Tsunoda colliding with Alex Albon's Williams, also the Alpine of Pierre Gasly involved. That's led to both Tsunoda and Albon out of this race, out of the car. Max Verstappen leads the race from Carlos Sainz, who started on pole for Ferrari. He's dropped down to second. Norris in third, ahead of Charles Leclerc. Then comes Hamilton, Russell the top 6. Magnussen and Hülkenberg, the Haas cars, round out the top 8, with Gasly and Lawson finishing off the point scorers as it currently stands. Stroll, Alonso, Sergio Perez is 13th, and it goes from bad to worse from Sergio Perez after what was a mega start for the Mexican, starting down in 18th. Went way too long in his box for the start of the race. That was immediately caught by the stewards, under investigation for his start, and he has been given a penalty, Sam, 5 seconds.
See, I don't think that's that bad. I really don't, because he's gained so many positions on the opening lap. He would have lost more than 5 seconds, probably in one lap, trying to overtake the likes of Joe, Bottas and Colapinto. So the fact that he's gained all those positions, I think he'd take that 5 seconds and go, do you know what, I'm up to 13th, I can get my head down now, try and get in the points.
He can build that into his race time, can't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
He'll take it at his first pit.
It's so early in the race that he's got a lot of time, but he's done a lot of the hard work in getting up to 13th.
So we have a 5-second penalty. We were forwards of the grid box. We were too far forwards.
So, have a look. I don't think we were.
That was Perez saying, have a look, I don't think we were, but I have a feeling if when he looks back on the TV images, he'll find it hard to argue.
He was, definitely was.
Well, look, just behind Perez is Colapinto in 14th, Bottas 15th, Joe, Piastri 17th in the McLaren, ahead of Ocon. No Albon, no Tsunoda, the victims of the first lap incident to the Williams in the RB car. Out 18 cars remain in this race, lap 6 of 71. The safety car has come in, and as they come into the Forosol Stadium, packed out normally for concerts like Taylor Swift, this evening packed out for the Mexico City Grand Prix, which is back underway. And as the sunshine glints off the Red Bull of Max Verstappen, he comes across the line to begin lap 7 and leads Sainz, Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton, the top 5 in that long run down into turn 1. But Sainz actually closing a little bit through the slipstream. DRS won't be enabled until the next lap around, but into turn 1, Verstappen holds on.
Yeah, textbook restart from Max Verstappen, booting it out of turn 13 through 14, 15, and yeah, leaving Carlos Sainz way behind. Okay, he was in the tone, he got close, braking into turn 1, but the damage was done with a really good restart, catching Carlos Sainz napping.
Now, we know the Ferraris are strong here. They've got good race pace. Charles Leclerc was showing one of the strongest race pace during practice. He's currently down in 4th, tucked up right behind Lando Norris, who is 1.7 seconds behind Carlos Sainz. So trying to get within DRS detection point as they close up through the middle sector, arcing their way through the left, then the right, then the left arcs that make up 7, 8 and 9 before you feed out into the short straight, into the right-hand braking zone of turn 12. It's Max Verstappen, who now has a 1.1 second gap over Carlos Sainz. He is not within DRS range as Carlos Sainz this time around. That's the drag reduction system. That is the rear wing flap opening in the allocated zones, which is down towards turn 1 and again through turn 12 and through turns 3 and 4. When you're within a second of the car in front, you get a beep in your ear, which means the DRS can open. Drag reduction system, it gives the car behind about 22 kilometers an hour advantage. It's about a 7/10 of a second gain. Sainz not in it in the run down to turn 1, but has now closed up to within a second.
I don't think they actually gave DRS on that lap, which was interesting. I thought they would. I didn't see any rear wings opening.
Well, DRS is now enabled on the race stewards board, and confirmation is now enabled. So we shall see if Sainz is able to benefit from that. Halfway through around this lap, it is lap 8 of 71. Verstappen 8/10 ahead of Sainz. Norris a couple of seconds back. This is a crucial race for Lando Norris's championship hopes. He's 57 points behind coming into this weekend. He needs to finish at the very least ahead of Max Verstappen to try and keep his championship hunt alive, and really he needs to win this race, but right now he is 2 seconds away from that. It's early stages though. Should also say all of the top 8 runners are on that medium tyre. We're expecting a one-stop race. Liam Lawson in the RB is highest of those running the hard tyre, going for the alternative strategy.
Fastest lap, Carlos Sainz across the line, and he is this lap within DRS range.
Closing up down towards turn 1. It's a 1.2 kilometre straight. Verstappen doesn't defend the inside line. To the inside, sparks fly from the underside of the Ferrari. Sainz has to have a couple of goes turning it into turn 2. Clouts the curb. Verstappen will get better traction on exit out through 3, but Sainz will get the DRS down towards turn 4, covers the inside line, pulls back to the racing line. The Ferrari takes the advantage, retakes the lead of this race on lap 9. Sainz leads Verstappen, leads Norris.
And that brings Norris right into play behind Max Verstappen. Carlos Sainz has got nothing to lose. He just wants to go out there and win this race. Max Verstappen, though, he's got to think about the championship. But who's on the hunt now for Max Verstappen? McLaren and Lando Norris.
This is the sound of Carlos Sainz. It was a late move down the inside, but you've got a lot of space there to fit 2 cars. And actually, Sam, coming into turn 2, it's almost like he turned in way too early and was about to cut the entire chicane.
I think he just wanted to make sure that Max Verstappen didn't send it down the inside of him at turn 2. Great full send by Carlos Sainz, full commitment.
Former teammates, of course, when they first came into Formula One, back then with the Red Bull Junior team.
Hey, what can I do with a M3 battery? What is this for stupid mode?
Verstappen's under pressure here. He's got the DRS advantage with Sainz ahead of him, closing up to the Ferrari, but Lando Norris is also right behind Verstappen now. Verstappen leads the championship, 57 points. He's second place in this race. Lando Norris is right behind him for third, but is trying to keep his title hopes alive. Down towards turn 4. Norris will get another dose of DRS to the outside, into the left-hander. Verstappen forces Norris off the road. They make contact. Norris has to cut the chicane. Sainz leads. Norris feeds out in front of Max Verstappen, who slots down to third. Will Norris let Verstappen come back through into the left-hander? They both run each other off the road. That allows Charles Leclerc through and up into second. It's Ferrari 1-2 as the title protagonists bicker over space on the road. In the end, they both lose out. Verstappen down to third, Norris behind in fourth as Carlos Sainz leads from Charles Leclerc.
Norris radio.
I was ahead the whole way through the corner. This guy is dangerous. I just have to avoid a crash. It's the same as last time, mate.
Yeah, we're on it, mate.
I'll end up in a wall in a minute.
I mean, I agree with Lando. That was too extreme. I mean, we're on the edge of our seats here, but that was really, really extreme. And the drivers had a meeting about this exact thing. You can't just run another driver off the circuit like what Max has done there twice.
We'll get another look at it hopefully in a few moments' time, but that has really played into the clutches of Ferrari. If they get a 1-2 and it finishes like this, they will usurp Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship. They'll move up to second. Here we go, Sam. We're getting another look at it now. It all started really in the run down to turn 4. Verstappen on the inside, Norris attacking around the outside, and Verstappen letting the car run out. Norris is left nowhere else to go. They actually did make slight contact, the front left of Lando Norris with the front right of Verstappen, and then coming out through turn 6, almost neither of them made the corner.
So on the technicalities of the first overtake, I'd like to see it again, because Verstappen did exactly the same thing as he did in Austin, came off the brakes to try to make sure he was at the apex first into turn 4. I don't know whether he managed it this time, but he definitely forced him off the track. Even more interesting for me, Sam, was going into the S's. Here's some knob radio from Norris.
He overtook off the track and pushed me off.
Yep. I think that's true. Going into the S's, I was going to say Norris was actually letting him by, it looked like, and Verstappen just went past on the inside and pushed him off. Absolutely extraordinary.
That was coming into the first of the S's. You arc your way through the left-hander of 7, then it's 8, 9, 10, 11, all come at you quite thick and fast. That was where Verstappen and Norris both went off the track, and that was all Charles Leclerc needed to say thank you very much. I'll come through and I'll get up into second. And Ferrari rubbing their hands together now. 1 and 2, Sainz 1.2 seconds ahead of Leclerc. Verstappen a further 1.7 seconds back, with Lando Norris 0.6 of a second behind him. Then comes Hamilton in 5th, Russell 6th, Magnussen and Hulkenberg 7th and 8th, with Gasly and Lawson still the top 10 runners. And that incident between Verstappen and Norris, forcing another driver off the track at turn 4, has been noted by race control and actually has just been elevated to under investigation. So we will see what comes from that. But the guidelines haven't changed yet, Andrew. That was the whole sort of fallout from last weekend.
They haven't, but as I was saying before the start of the race, are the stewards going to judge it differently than they did in Austin because of the conversation with the drivers? More importantly, Harry, there are 2 incidents, both the turn 4 incident and the turn 8 incident that I was talking about. They're both under investigation. Verstappen could end up with 2 5-second penalties here, or even 2 10-second penalties, because actually the default penalty, overtaking off the track is 10 seconds, forcing off I think is 5. But anyway, it could be 5, could be 10. Let's see what the stewards do.
Well, this has come alive in the last few laps, hasn't it? And we're only on lap 13 of 71 of the Mexico City Grand Prix. Perez, by the way, has just made his way up into 11th, spurred on by the Mexican crowd. Stroll, Alonso, Colapinto and Piastri is now just making a move on Valtteri Bottas down the inside at turn 1. The McLaren driver had a really rough qualifying, down in 17th, now up into 15th, ahead of the 2 Saubers. Esteban Ocon running 18th and last. No Albon and no Tsunoda. Once again, into turn 4 we go. It's a replay, I think it is. Yeah, I'll get excited again.
So Verstappen did have his front wheels ahead at the apex. He did just about manage that. So he'll argue that, just like what happened in Austin last year, he did the same thing, as I said before, chuck it down the inside to make sure he got that thing, forced Norris off the track. Here we are at turn 8, Sam.
Yeah, he goes down the inside. I mean,
was he expecting to be let through there? It's almost like he was just carrying too much speed to. He's had
an enormous understeer going through there. He didn't open up. I was looking for whether he's opened up the steering to Max Verstappen. Penalty. What penalty is it? It's a 10-second penalty for Max Verstappen
for forcing another driver off the track. That is the steward's decision on that one. Max Verstappen, who is currently 3rd in this race, with a 10-second time penalty for forcing another driver off the track. Norris sits in 4th. Meanwhile, just behind them, the 2 Mercedes are going at it. Russell started ahead of Hamilton, but it's Hamilton who's got the better of him in the opening laps, almost going nose to tail through turns 2 and 3, defending the inside line down to the left-hander of turn 4 for Hamilton. Russell tries to swing it late on the brakes round the outside. That becomes the inside of turn 5, but not enough speed, not close enough to the side of Hamilton there, but the 2 Mercedes racing very nicely.
So just to be clear on the penalty, that's 10 seconds for Verstappen. Here's his radio.
So Max Frippo, you've been given a 10-second penalty for forcing Lando off track at turn 4. So head down.
10. It's quite impressive.
There was a lot of whinging. A lot.
Well, Anyway, so this is obviously going to run and run after the race. What I was going to say was he has to serve that at his pit stop. So he'll be sitting there for 10 seconds before the mechanics can touch the car when he comes in. A couple of things to mention here. At the very front, Charles Leclerc is staying right with Carlos Sainz, and we've got the Mercedes drivers battling. Lewis Hamilton's looked slower than George Russell all race, and Russell's attacking him now into turn 1, Harry.
Russell with the DRS. Hamilton moves to the inside. Russell has to dart to the outside, late on the brakes, side by side. Into turn 1 we go. The right-hander, Russell sweeps round the outside. That becomes the inside. Clout the curve on the exit. Russell ahead of Hamilton now as they make down the run towards turn 4. Russell will get an extra dose of DRS, and actually as they're battling, I tell you what, Kevin Magnussen in the Haas is right behind Hamilton and fancies a go at this, but Russell now through and back up into 5th. He started ahead of Hamilton on the road and they're now back that way.
Yeah, decent move. DRS really powerful down the straight going into turn 1. He's jinked to the inside, then used the more grippy area around the outside and swept round the 7-time world champion, and then had the inside line for 2 and 3. But I think Lando Norris will be hoping that they don't fight too much. These Mercedes cars have kind of got to stay in check with Lando.
Come on, guys. Stop just taking the honestly.
That was Carlos Sainz on the radio there. I would imagine he's not quite happy with the pace of Charles Leclerc right now. Is he? I suppose they can control this race now, Sam. They don't need to drive the wheels off this thing and degrade more.
I think something must happen that we haven't seen, because Charles Leclerc was within a second of Carlos Sainz, and he's now dropped to 1.7 seconds behind. I'm wondering if Charles Leclerc has had a lunge and run wide or something quite bizarre, and therefore Carlos Sainz is not happy, because right now they're in total control of this race.
They are. 1.7 seconds the gap, as the first pit stop is Fernando Alonso on his 400th Grand Prix weekend, and he will not see the checkered flag. He has been brought in to retire the car. The most experienced man on the grids out of this race becomes the 3rd car to retire from the Mexico City Grand Prix.
We'll have to wait and see if we get a replay of whatever happened with the Ferraris, but I have to say Carlos Sainz is a bit rich of him to complain if Charles Leclerc's attacking him. Look what happened in the sprint race in Austin a week ago.
Both Ferraris fighting hard, but of course for Carlos Sainz every moment is precious as he bows out from Ferrari at the end of the year to make way for Lewis Hamilton, who will team up with Charles Leclerc for Ferrari next year.
And keep it clean. You have a good pace. Keep it clean.
So that was Leclerc's radio. Definitely sounds like there was some sort of move that we haven't seen on the TV pictures that we get. The gap between Sainz and Leclerc right now, as we start lap 17 of 71, is 1.7 seconds. Verstappen a further couple of seconds back. Norris has dropped off now in 3rd. Russell 4th. Hamilton 5th. Magnussen is right there with them as well in the Haas. Kevin Magnussen, who's also bowing out of Formula 1, we believe, at the end of the year, won't be at Haas next year. He's ahead of teammate Hülkenberg. Gasly and Lawson the top 10, and Lawson now is under pressure from Sergio Perez, who has clawed his way up into 11th and has really closed up to the back of the RB car, out through 3 and 4. Perez, this is the sound of the Red Bull driver, will get the aid of DRS, closes right up to the back of Lawson, who has the inside line going into the left-hander of turn 4. Lawson has to run a little bit deep. That gives Perez a wider exit through the line, quicker on the traction, but the next corner comes almost too quick, and it's a double right-hand corner through 5 and 6 that brings you out in the rundown towards the S's 7 and 8, and really it's single file through here.
So it's all got a bit breathless, hasn't it? But what we haven't seen is which incident was Verstappen penalised for. They haven't specified that so far on the screens. We'll get the steward's report later. But was it the turn 4 one, or was it the turn? It was the turn 4 one. What about the turn 8 one then?
We don't know.
We have to ask about that one. And interestingly, if it is the turn 4 one, if you're sure about that, Harry, then I'll take your word for it. Then that means that the stewards have taken a completely different view, the absolute opposite view of what they took in the Austin incident a week ago.
So I say turn 4 because we heard Gianpiero Lambiase, Max Verstappen's race engineer, say on the radio the reason for the penalty was the turn 4 incident. So that is what I'm basing that off of there. The other penalty we haven't seen if that is going to turn into a penalty at all, when both Verstappen and Norris went off the track coming through the S's section in the middle sector.
GP Lambiese may actually know that, he may have been told that, but we haven't seen that on the screens, just to be absolutely clear. It hasn't specified that anywhere yet from the stewards.
Lap 18 of 71, and Perez and Lawson are still dicing down into the left-hander of turn 4. Lawson leaves little to no room, and Perez is forced off the road, tries to come back on it. Lawson will not budge. The RB driver, who is in contention to replace Sergio Perez at the big team next year, showing Red Bull bosses why they need the young Kiwi in their car next year. The battle for 10th between Lawson and Perez hotting up, and Perez coming worse off.
Yeah, some small damage actually on the side pod now of Sergio Perez's car. That won't help him in his charge through the field. That'll definitely hurt some downforce points.
Lawson and Perez both on the hard tyres, so running much longer into this race than those running the medium tyre. Still haven't had the indications of first pit stops yet. Here's Perez's radio.
What the is this idiot doing? Is he okay?
Perez on the radio reflecting his thoughts on Liam Lawson, who is currently sitting in 10th, ahead of Perez in 11th. As Perez now, actually after that scrap, is under pressure from the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll, who is trying to make a move on the Mexican, who holds the racing line coming into the right-hander of turn 1, then it's the left-hander of turn 2. Quick jaunt over the curbs through the right-hander of 3 and down towards turn 4. Stroll will get the next dose of DRS. He'll move to the outside. Perez will hold the inside line. Stroll is later around the outside. Perez forces him off the road in what is almost a carbon copy of what we saw between Verstappen and Norris, except this time Stroll slots back in behind Perez, not willing to budge on that occasion, and as they fight, Lawson has escaped well up the road.
So Oscar Piastri down in 14th. He hasn't made the progress that I thought he would. He's having quite a subdued race, I think. Stuck behind Colapinto, within DRS, but not really making the inroads that I thought he would.
Max Verstappen has just received another penalty. I think it's another 10-second time penalty for the turn 8 excursion between himself and Lando Norris. That has just flashed up on our screen. It's lap 20 of 71, and it will be a 10-second time penalty for Verstappen for leaving the track and gaining an advantage at turn 8. That brings his total up to 20 seconds for Max Verstappen. Penalty in this race.
That's now a really, really big issue, because before I thought, well, it's only probably by the pit stop going to drop him behind Norris, maybe the Mercedes, but now it drops him out of the top 10. He's going to have to do an awful lot of fighting to get back towards the top 5.
Right now, if it were to end like this, the gap between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris would rise to 60 points between them. So this is good news for Lando Norris's championship.
It's not ending like this, Harry, though, is it? It comes away.
Just trying to keep people aware of the maths here. But that is very good news for Lando Norris. And Sam, we just got another brief look at the Lawson-Perez scrap. What did you make of that? Well, let's hear from Lawson's side first.
Is he serious?
Loud and clear, we will review it right on.
I think Lawson was perfectly within his right to keep it on the inside. We're now looking at a replay. Yes, look at the damage on the side pod of Sergio Perez's car. Actually a hole through the thin carbon fibre that protects the radiators on the right-hand side. We're now looking at a replay of Lance Stroll trying to do a Liam Lawson and not quite doing a Liam Lawson.
Is that not another slam dunk penalty then for Sergio Perez?
Looked like it to me. That's twice now he's done that.
If consistency is what the stewards go for, apologies, nearly a big moment between Franco Colapinto and Oscar Piastri coming down into turn 1, both fighting. Colapinto moving across to the right-hand side of the track, almost taking out Piastri's front nose. They just about avoid a collision, and now they run side by side down to turn 4 with the DRS tyres, both open on both cars. Piastri has the inside line, gets the move. Colapinto is trying to get back in front of Oscar Piastri. Piastri is now in 12th. Colapinto right behind in 13th in the Williams.
Now, Oscar Piastri is a very stable, calm guy on the radio, but I think he might have a word or two to say about that. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, that was a late move there, but it seems like everybody's got their elbows out today, doesn't it? It looks like everybody's had their Weetabix this morning and everybody's really fighting and scrapping out there for every position.
Everybody's had their taco this morning, that is for sure. You're listening to live coverage of the Mexico City Grand Prix with myself, Harry Benjamin, McLaren Formula E driver Sam Bird, and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson, trying to keep a track on what's going on in this race here. We've got 3 cars out already. It's lap 22. Tsunoda and Albon coming together in the early stages.
So Verstappen now has a 20-second penalty.
Wow.
That was George Russell being told what has happened to Max Verstappen in this race. So once we got through lap 1 where we lost Tsunoda and Albon, the safety car came out and then it came back in again, and we saw ferocious fighting between Verstappen and Norris, and Verstappen doing what he did in Austin last time out, forcing Norris off the track when Verstappen in turn 4 had the inside line, trying to get to the apex first. Norris was forced to cut across the grass, and then again coming into turn 8, the beginning of the S's section through the middle sector, it almost seemed like Norris was letting Verstappen through, and as Verstappen went down the inside, went off the track, forcing Norris to go as well, and as a result he has received 2 10-second time penalties for those incidents, totaling 20 seconds. He will serve that at the first pit stop that he has. They will not be able to touch the car for 20 seconds.
So Max, update, you've been given another 10-second time penalty. That's for leaving this track and gaining an advantage at turn 8.
So, how much hit then? 4? That's fine then? Or that's silly, man?
So Verstappen showcasing his thoughts there, not impressed by that. So the second 10-second time penalty was leaving the track and gaining an advantage. The first one was forcing a driver off the track at turn 4, that driver being Lando Norris.
I didn't actually catch what he said there, apart from at the end that it was silly.
Yeah, the radio a little bit grainy on that front, but either way you can tell the tone of Max Verstappen's voice not happy. Sergio Perez, his teammate, had a 5-second time penalty, started way down the order in 18th spot, and actually didn't start the race properly, had a false start, was far too forward in his grid box, which received a 5-second time penalty, and I believe Perez has come in to the pits and served that 5-second time penalty along with changing his tyre. He's moved on to the medium. He's now plumb last in 17th place. Meanwhile, it's Carlos Sainz who leads, having lost the race lead initially from pole position to Verstappen, regained it. And while Verstappen and Norris were doing battle, Charles Leclerc made hay while the sun shone in Mexico City and made it a Ferrari 1-2. And the two Ferraris really having control over this race and looking set to jump Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship and make their way up into second. This race has really come alive from the very start. We're only on lap 24. We're not even halfway there.
Now, Harry, it had looked for quite a few laps as if Lando Norris was just going to sit behind Max Verstappen. He's been about 1.5 seconds behind for quite a while now since those 2 big incidents. But he's now closing up on the back of him again, and I wonder what's going to happen next.
Well, I think he's realised that the Ferraris are disappearing up the road. If he wants to win this race and cause maximum damage to the championship lead, because Max Verstappen's got this huge penalty incoming, he's got to get a move on. The only problem is Max Verstappen's in the way, so it's kind of difficult for Lando Norris at the moment, as we see Oscar Piastri throwing another shape down the inside, this time on Lance Stroll for 11th place. But going back to Lando Norris's predicament, does he want to fight Max Verstappen? Because he's seen Max Verstappen, I mean, he's got a 20-second penalty now. It's almost like, well, does he even care about this race now?
Well, it's a calculation for Norris, isn't it? He might hope that Verstappen's learned a lesson and therefore can't race like that anymore, because he has another penalty. He's not, could end up with a black flag if he's not careful. If this carries on, that's a black flag is a disqualification. You can't just ignore the stewards' rulings if you're a racing driver. If you get fed up, they get fed up with you and do something about it. At the front, meanwhile, Charles Leclerc, after whatever happened between the two Ferrari drivers that Carlos Sainz complained about has dropped to 4.5 seconds back, and I wonder if he's got car damage as a result of whatever incident. They haven't obviously picked up on the TV cameras yet.
No, Charles Leclerc does have the fastest lap to his name though. Meanwhile, just behind them, the title rivals are battling once more. Lando Norris is caught right up to the back of Max Verstappen, who will keep reminding you until that first pit stop has a 20-second penalty to serve.
My tyres are not holding on, guys. Really bad.
We know the McLaren is particularly good on its tyres. It seems to come alive the second half of a race stint on the mediums and the hards. So can Lando Norris do anything about Max Verstappen? He's got to, because the Ferraris are getting further and further away.
By the way, the Lawson and Perez incident in turn 5, that is no further action on that one. But the turn 4 incident involving Stroll and Perez, which is very much exactly the same of Verstappen and Norris through turn 4 for forcing another driver off the track, that is under investigation. So if the stewards are being consistent, we would expect to see a 10-second time penalty come the way of Sergio Perez. Meanwhile, battle into turn 1, Norris with a quick dart to the inside, but he's not making it work on that occasion to try and make a move on his rival Max Verstappen. These two have already come to blows in this race, came to blows last weekend out in Austin as well. 57 points separating them in the Drivers' Championship coming into this race, and Norris has had the stronger car for the majority of the weekend, but Norris right now stuck behind Verstappen. But are Verstappen's tyres on the wane?
Verstappen's tyres are on the wane, but he's getting decent traction out of 16-17, the last corner, compared to Lando Norris. Lando just not able to get close enough out of that final sector to then get a run down into turn 1.
Lap 26 of 71, Carlos Sainz leads for Ferrari by over 5.5 seconds. Verstappen then is a further 6 seconds back, but cannot shake Lando Norris as they come into the stadium section. The Forest Sol through the tight left-hander that feeds you out through the right-hander over the bump at turn 15. And instead of completing the lap, Max Verstappen will peel into the pits for his first pit stop. He will come, or he should come, into his pit box. The team will not be able to touch the car for 20 seconds as he serves his time penalty. If anybody is seen to touch the car before 20 seconds is up, he will be given another penalty. And this will feel like an age, Sam, won't it?
Oh, this will be dreadful. It'll be the longest 20 seconds of the season for Max Verstappen and Red Bull, and they're still there. God, it's taking an eternity.
And they now go, and you can hear the sound of the wheels being changed, and it's still not the quickest of getaways either for Verstappen, who is dropping all the way down the order in total, including that penalty for 20 seconds. It's a 24-second stop, so a 4-second pit stop then if you count into actually changing the tyres. Where will he feed out? He'll come out of the pit lane in 15th position on the hard tyre. And I imagine then, Sam, he will try and go to the end on that hard tyre.
Yeah, he will. I expected Perez to be overtaking him, but Perez is still a further 3.5 seconds back. I don't know what happened to Sergio Perez. His pace just disappeared on those hards when he had that collision with Liam Lawson.
Well, he's got a little bit of damage, hasn't he, Perez, to the side pod and the underside of the car on the right-hand side, but Perez stopping early. The two Red Bulls in 15th and 16th in this race, they have both pitted, both receiving penalties. Interestingly, the turn 4 incident involving Stroll and Perez, no further action. That seems a little bit, well, inconsistent to me, Sam.
Yeah, it kind of shouted the same thing as Max Verstappen. But with a different outcome. So I think there's going to be a lot of discussions with the stewards after this race. I think there's going to be a lot of grumpy racing drivers, and it's going to be a long evening for whoever is in charge of calling these outcomes this evening out in Mexico.
I can't wait for the Checkered Flag podcast. We'll analyse all of this, but it's nowhere near done yet. Lap 28 of 71 around the Mexico City Grand Prix circuit, the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. Nice battle going on further back in the pack as Esteban Ocon in the Alpine shoots past the Sauber of Zhou Guanyu going down into turn 1. That's a move for 13th position. Indeed, Esteban Ocon started from the pit lane and has worked his way up and avoided the carnage that was Yuki Tsunoda, Alex Albon and his teammate Pierre Gasly going into turmoil on lap 1. Gasly did live to survive that one. He's currently in 8th. Running behind, it should be said, very strong race right now for the two Haas cars. Magnussen in 6th, Hülkenberg in 7th, as Hamilton has just been told to come into the pits. First of the front runners after Max Verstappen. In 5th place he currently is. He'll be called into the pits then. It's Sainz who leads Leclerc, Norris, Russell, Hamilton the top 5, Magnussen, Hülkenberg, Gasly, Lawson and Piastri the top 10, as in comes Hamilton. Nice quick stop for Lewis Hamilton. Well, I say quick stop, 3.1 these days is a little bit slow.
It's an eternity compared to the 1.9 that Red Bull did in China earlier this year. But as he trundles out of the pit lane, only, I think it's 80 kilometres an hour allowed in the pit lanes these days. It used to be 100 kilometres an hour, but it was lowered for safety concerns quite a few years ago now, that regulation change. And Lewis Hamilton filters out back into 10th place behind Franco Colapinto.
I find it quite interesting that Charles Leclerc is now almost 7.5 seconds behind Carlos Sainz, having clearly been right up behind Sainz earlier on once he made the move through Verstappen and Norris taking each other off the road. That gap has dropped off quite a bit. Yeah, well, we heard a radio message from Carlos Sainz saying, can Charles be serious? What's he doing? Now, at that stage, Charles Leclerc had closed the gap to within 0.7 of a second. Then all of a sudden, the next lap, he was 1.7 seconds behind. So we haven't seen anything, but what we expect is something has happened. They've had a close encounter, and either Charles Leclerc has been told, right, back off, or there's actually been a bit of an issue between the pair, and now Charles Leclerc is paying the price. Well, right now, the chips are falling Carlos Sainz's way, having started from pole, lost it on the first lap to Max Verstappen, but has now found his way back up into the lead after a great overtake on Verstappen on the road, and now with almost 8 seconds ahead of Leclerc. Norris is 3rd, Russell 4th, Magnussen's up to 5th, Lawson, Piastri, Colapinto, Hamilton, Bottas the top 10. We've just had Hülkenberg come into the pits as well, as Verstappen has also pitted, has served his 20-second time penalty, and has just overtaken Pierre Gasly's Alpine for Esteban Ocon's Alpine for 11th place.
See, I still think Max Verstappen has got the pace to probably get up to either P4 or P5 in this race. There's an awfully long way to go. He's pitted very early, and I think tyre degradation will be very tricky for him come the end of the race. But certainly the Mercedes pace isn't that good, as Norris is told to box from 3rd place.
Here comes Norris then, as the McLaren mechanics limber up for Lando Norris coming into his pit box. This is the sound of it, hits his marks. That's the sound of the tyres changing and being set away back into the fast lane. Nice quick stop from the McLaren team. 2.3 seconds as he feeds out into this race. Kevin Magnussen also comes into the pits from 5th. So Norris will feed out then in 4th. Russell goes up into 3rd. Sainz leads Leclerc and Russell, the top 3 in this race, yet to pit. Norris, the first of the pit stoppers, in 4th.
Yeah, good clean stop there from McLaren, and it really helped him the fact that Magnussen decided to pit at the same time. So he's got clean air now to attack behind George Russell. George Russell obviously hasn't done his first stop yet. Let's see the pace that Lando Norris can churn out on those fresh, hard tyres.
Charles Leclerc from 2nd has been told to box, so he will be coming into the pits. Now that's interesting though, so normally it's the lead driver who will get first dibs at a pit stop, isn't it?
It is, but why should Carlos Sainz pit yet? He's got a 9-second advantage on Charles Leclerc. He can stay out there for another couple of laps if he wants. Such is his advantage at the moment, such is his lead. He can extend his stint and make those, the second tyres, do less laps.
Well, in comes Charles Leclerc, exchanges his medium tyres for hards after a 3.1 second stop. George Russell slots in to do the exact same thing. A little bit slow though on the front left for Russell, who is set on his way. It's still a quicker pit stop than the Ferrari team. 2.8 for Russell compared to 3.1. So now Norris back up into 3rd. Leclerc's fit out in 2nd. The gap between Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris is about 6 seconds. So we'll see how that battle pans out. The other McLaren further back, Oscar Piastri, is making moves, staying out as long as he can on the medium tyre, having started all the way down in 17th spot. Piastri in a little battle with Liam Lawson right now. Lawson yet to stop too. He's worked his way up to 4th once some of the front runners have pitted, and actually they're having a nice dice, but annoyingly for Russell, it's right in front of him.
And box, Carlos box, speed confirmed box. One more lap, guys, come on, one more lap.
Carlos Sainz pleading for one more lap before he comes in to pit, but he has just pitted. Now, we do get the radio messages on a bit of a delay, but it's not often it's a full lap delay. So Sainz then coming in from the lead of this race, a 31-second advantage he had over Charles Leclerc. The pit stop loss is between 21 and 22 seconds, depending on how quick your stop is. And that was pretty decent from Carlos Sainz, 2.7 seconds. We've seen quicker, but we've seen way slower.
Yeah, I think he'll come out about 7 or 8 seconds in the lead over Charles Leclerc. Remember, Charles Leclerc's hard compound tyres will be up to temperature, and they'll get through that shiny surface that you have with a new set of tyres. He doesn't want to, you know, overwork them on this first lap and damage the surface of the tyre either.
Lap 33 of 71, and Oscar Piastri, who has yet to stop, working his way up the field from right at the back, is having to, well, not really fight George Russell, who has stopped already. Much quicker tyres, much less degraded tyres on board the Mercedes driver. Carves his way through Piastri. His next target will be Liam Lawson. So George Russell, the Mercedes, has rather interrupted the nice battle between Liam Lawson and Oscar Piastri, who are battling for track position. Russell not in their race, so they do the sensible thing and don't lose too much time with him.
Why have we done this? Surely we could have done 1-2 more laps more.
That's Russell questioning why have they pitted. I imagine it's because he came out right behind this battle here. Would have lost a heap of time in that, what is technically traffic, even though one of the cars is a McLaren.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the strategy from Oscar Piastri, it might pay out towards the end of the race. So, you know, the fact that the McLaren is good on its tyres, I think that he'll come charging through.
Mate, think about pulling me out of the...
That's what Oscar Piastri thinks of his strategy, trying to get him out of this, the situation he is currently in, which is in a battle with the RB driver of Liam Lawson ahead of him, but they've got quicker cars who have pitted coming up behind, so Piastri can't really properly attack Lawson because he's got Hamilton right behind him now. This is the sound of the 7-time champion who tries to make a move down the inside. Piastri defends, it's almost 3 wide. Lawson involved in this as well. Hamilton pinched towards the inside apex through the left-hander of 2, out through the right-hander of 3. It's Lawson in 5th, Piastri 6th, then comes Lewis Hamilton in 7th. It will be Piastri and Hamilton with the benefit of the DRS. Lawson takes the racing line. That allows Piastri down the inside and through on the RB. Hamilton still having to wait behind them. Hamilton is losing an age here. Shoves it up the inside at turn 6 though. Hamilton down the inside of Lawson, makes his way through. This is a battle on track, but it's not really what Hamilton wants to be in. He's already pitted. Lawson and Piastri have not, although Piastri has just benefited and in that scramble has overtaken Lawson.
He's benefited, but he's lost time. You know, I think that Piastri's fight could potentially be with the likes of Lewis Hamilton come the end of this race, potentially, if he gets a move on. So all of this fighting is just losing the McLaren driver lap time.
Oh, just seeing another look at the gap between Hamilton and Piastri in the run down to turn 1 during that little squabble, and Hamilton squeezed all the way to the right hand side, dipping a wheel onto the grass almost, bumping along it, sparks flying from the underneath of his Mercedes, and he's going to have another go on Piastri right now down towards turn 1, but this one looks quite easy for Lewis Hamilton. Down the inside with the aid of DRS into the right hander of turn 1, makes the move stick this time as Hamilton gets ahead of Piastri. So Piastri's now in 6th, Lawson down to 7th, has yet to pit. Colapinto's up to 8th, yet to pit. Max Verstappen has now up to 9th, having done a couple of overtakes and seen others stop for their first tyre change. It's Carlos Sainz though who leads. Lap 35 of 71 leads Charles Leclerc by 8.2 seconds. Norris is 3rd, Russell, Hamilton the top 5. They have all pitted. Oscar Piastri has not pitted and is actually really eking out his medium tyre. that he started on all the way down right at the back of the grid in 17th. Lawson on the hard tyre going long in 7th. So too Colapinto 8th. Verstappen, Bottas the top 10, yet to pit though for Bottas.
So even after having a 20-second penalty, Max Verstappen, okay, is 4 positions behind, but he's only 6.5 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton in 5th place.
It's the power of Max Verstappen behind the wheel, isn't it? George Russell has just asked his team to check the front wing. So is he feeling a little bit of damage, perhaps, that he's picked up somewhere along the way? Russell is currently 4th, 13.5 seconds back from Norris, just 3 seconds ahead of his teammate Lewis Hamilton. Max Verstappen continues to pick off cars, though, in his recovery after a 20-second time penalty for 2 separate incidents, both involving Lando Norris, though, and has just made a move on Franco Colapinto up into 8th spot. Colapinto in the Williams yet to pit from all the way down. He actually got knocked out in Q1. Colapinto started this race in 16th, once again going long on this race. He did that last time as well and managed to make his way and score 1 point. Would have been 2 had he got the fastest lap, which he had right up until the very end, until Esteban Ocon and the Alpine nicked it off him in their battle for the lower part of the Constructors' Championship. Williams just 4 points ahead of Alpine, 8th and 9th, being battled over ferociously. That's what's happening further down in the Constructors' Championship. We're just over halfway distance of the Mexico City Grand Prix. With me, Harry Benjamin, is the McLaren Formula E driver, Sam Bird. Also the BBC's F1 correspondent, Andrew Benson, is here. And what has been a bit of a chaotic first half of this Mexico City Grand Prix. It's the 20th round of the Formula One calendar. Just 4 rounds to go after this one. And Carlos Sainz, who started on pole, lost the lead initially to Max Verstappen. And indeed, the safety car came out halfway through lap 1 because of an incident involving the RB of Yuki Tsunoda and the Williams of Alex Albon. So too the Alpine of Pierre Gasly, all squeezing into turn 1. The RB and the Williams coming worse off. They both had to retire, so we have no Tsunoda and no Albon. Gasly carrying on. We've also lost Fernando Alonso, by the way, in the Aston Martin on his 400th Grand Prix weekend. Not the way he would have wanted to end this race in Mexico. The safety car went in, we got back underway, and then Sainz did manage to get through on Verstappen with a brilliant move in the first sector of this lap, and then started to pull away. Then Verstappen and Norris with a big fight into turn 4 and again through turn 8, but Verstappen playing by the rules, by the guidebook. But of course that has been questioned since the last time he played it with it in Austin last weekend, and as a result he received 2 10-second time penalties, which he has now served in his first pit stop. That dropped him all the way down the order. He's now worked his way back up into 8th spot. His teammate Perez also receiving a penalty for a false start. He's now down in 16th in his home race, so it's not going on for Red Bull so far. It's advantage for Ferrari, and Lando Norris is in 3rd.
It's advantage for Ferrari, but on the last lap, Carlos Sainz has just said to the radio, check the data. I had a massive misfire through turn 3. Now it could be nothing, it could have just been a little cough, but that's not the radio message you want to hear, as Max Verstappen goes down the inside of Liam Lawson, and now Max Verstappen is already back up into 7th place. As it stands as well, everybody that's listening, Ferrari move into 2nd in the team's championship, and closing quite rapidly on McLaren, it must be said as well.
Certainly, and well, if it ended like this, and I really don't think it will, but we wait to see, well, the gap in the Drivers' Championship would close to 48 points between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. Came into this weekend 57 points, but that would close. But still a way to go. Yeah, we've only just gone over halfway distance. The Haas cars are battling it out as well, with the Sauber of Bottas, who was yet to pit. Both Haas getting through now. Magnussen in 10th and Hulkenberg in 11th. Both cars were well inside the top 10 in qualifying and in the race. As that 39 of 71 for the Mexico City Grand Prix. Let's just bring you up to speed with the latest action from the Premier League earlier today. Arsenal drew 2-2 with Liverpool. Liverpool now 1 point off leaders Man City. Arsenal 5 from top. Elsewhere, West Ham scored a controversial late penalty to beat Man U 2-1, while Crystal Palace claimed their first win of the Premier League season.
Something is wrong with the steering wheel. So much strange. It gets stiff, then goes soft, stiff, soft.
Okay, copy that, Franco. We are checking.
concern from Franco Colapinto's Williams. Something wrong with the steering wheel there. He's currently in ninth, has yet to stop, so the team checking that one. He's got Kevin Magnussen all over the back of him. And as well, Chelsea defeated Newcastle 2-1 at Stamford Bridge earlier today. Also in Rugby League, England beat Samoa 34-18 in the opening match of their two-test series. And in tennis, Jack Draper has won the biggest title of his career in Vienna. The British number one will rise to a career high ranking of 15th in the world on Monday. That's what's happening elsewhere in the sports world. Here on 5 Live right now, though, we are enjoying a frenetic Mexico City Grand Prix. It's lap 40 of 71. Carlos Sainz for Ferrari leads Charles Leclerc, his teammate, by over 7 seconds. Lando Norris is third, and that right now would close the gap to Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship. The team Mercedes, Russell ahead of Hamilton, the top 5. Then comes Piastri in 6th. Verstappen, after a 20-second time penalty applied in his pit stop, has now worked his way up into 7th as Piastri comes into the pit, so that will promote Verstappen up 1. Behind Piastri, Lawson also comes into the pits for his first pit stop. That puts Colapinto up to 8. He's yet to pit. Magnussen moves back up into the points. So too will his teammate, and also Valtteri Bottas will get elevated. He's also yet to pit, though, for the Sauber driver on the hard tyre, going as long as they may. And Magnussen getting through on Franco Colapinto up into 7th spot for the Dane, who is enjoying one of his best Grand Prix of the season. It's been back-to-back top 10 qualifyings for Kevin Magnussen, who will leave Haas at the end of the year.
So, Harry, let's just take a step back and look at the big picture here. We've got the Ferraris leading. Leclerc can't catch Sainz. Norris is making no inroads into the Ferraris. In fact, he's dropping back by a couple of tenths a lap. The key thing, of course, in the championship is the gap between Norris and Verstappen. Now, Verstappen's in 6th place behind the two Mercedes drivers, Russell and Hamilton. He's 7.6 seconds behind Hamilton, but he's actually quite slow. He's half a second or so a lap slower than Lewis Hamilton at the moment. So while you might expect Max Verstappen to be closing on Lewis Hamilton, who's obviously not happy with that newly upgraded Mercedes, he doesn't appear to be doing so at the moment. But even so, Norris gets 15 points for 3rd place, and Verstappen would get 18, 15, 12, 10, 8 points for 6th. So he's actually, even though Verstappen's had 20 seconds worth of penalties, Norris is only going to gain 7 points. Here's Verstappen's radio.
It's getting really dark.
Nothing going to hit the track at the moment, Max.
Well, some clouds may be looming over the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez for Max Verstappen, but no sign of rain on the radar. Say Red Bull, air temperature just over 20 degrees, track temperature above 38 degrees, and it is hot inside the cockpit for Sergio Perez, who is under pressure from Liam Lawson in the RB. These two had a brilliant scrap earlier on. Neither particularly enjoyed it from inside the car, but on this occasion, Lawson gets through and up into 16th. Of course, Perez pitted very early to go onto the medium tyre, and we believe he does have damage to the right-hand side of his car as a result of his skirmish with Liam Lawson, a man, by the way, who is touted to replace Sergio Perez in that Red Bull team next year.
Yeah, it's been a difficult weekend, to say the least, for Sergio Perez. He's had that damage early on in the race, had to pit early onto the medium compound tyre, 20 laps versus 1 lap. Liam Lawson was always going to come through as Helmut Marko looks on, and he's probably thinking, I think your days are numbered, Sergio.
I think he's been thinking that for a little while, hasn't he? Perez in front of his home crowd, not putting on the performance he would have wanted. Of course, he crashed out lap 1, turn 1, this time last year. Has been on the podium twice here before, though, back in 2022 and 2021. 3rd place in what was an incredibly emotional podium for Perez. It looks far away for him today, this afternoon in Mexico.
And it's a shame, he had such a good start. He was out of his...
Just halfway through his box, that was why.
But he had a great first lap. It's a shame that it's ended this way.
Very small range up on the visor.
Copy.
That was Russell on the radio saying very small raindrops on the visor. We just heard a few moments ago Verstappen saying it's getting very dark. And while, well, his engineer was quick to dismiss it, maybe we are going to see some rain play a factor in this Mexico City Grand Prix. That'll be another twist in this tale, won't it?
It's exciting enough. I just wanted to stay as it is, to be honest, Harry. We've had a fantastic opening 43 laps of this Grand Prix. It's settled down a little bit now, especially at the front, but it's still frenetic in the mid-pack.
Verstappen saying he's got no grip on the radio, so Verstappen's day is just not panning out the way he would want to, but he's still bagging decent points. As Andrew alluded to a few moments ago, if he finishes 6th, Norris really needed to win this race, still needs to win this race, but he is 5 seconds behind Charles Leclerc, who has closed in slightly to Carlos Sainz, now within 7 seconds, has been over 7 seconds for the majority of this race on lap 43 of 71. Battle for 10th playing out quite nicely at the moment between Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, who's just got ahead of the Sauber of Valtteri Bottas, and right behind Bottas is Oscar Piastri. They have all pitted except for Bottas, who is being hung out there for quite some time. He's on the hard tyre, indeed, can't really put up too much of a fight as Piastri cruises past in the run down to turn 4. And Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas, along with Kevin Magnussen, having a brilliant race as we focus on the mid-pack a little bit. Magnussen is in 7th and Hülkenberg cruises up to the back of Franco Colapinto, another one of the drivers who has yet to pit, the Argentine who replaced Logan Sargent in Monza, and for the remainder of the season has really turned heads in the paddock. Had a below par qualifying, but it was very similar to what he did in Austin as well. Knocked out in the early stages of qualifying, but going long into the race and showing the right strategy, managed to seal him a point. And right now, he's still going strong in 9th, but he will have Pierre Gasly on his case shortly in the Alpine, who has pitted.
Yeah, I think that this strategy hasn't worked out perfectly for Colapinto. Oscar Piastri, on the other hand, though, in 11th at the moment. That'll become 10th, I believe, quite soon, as he's on the back of the Alpine of Pierre Gasly, and it's an easy overtake down the inside. Sergio Perez has been told to box. I can only assume that that will be another set of mediums or a retirement, and it is another set of mediums, Harry.
So Perez then forced to do a 2-stop strategy, which was not the way the script was being written initially. 1 stop expected for the majority. We are on lap 45 of 71, so Perez comes out behind Zhou Guanyu in the Sauber, who has also just pitted. Zhou, though, pitting only for the first time, coming out ahead on the medium tyre. Perez fitting another medium tyre. They'll have to go to the end on that then.
I think as well, I think he might be a lap down now. I think that, did we just see a McLaren whiz by in front of Zhou Guanyu? I think we did. So Sergio Perez is now a lap down on his home race. Even if there was a safety car, there's no way back. We're now getting images of the city of Mexico, and it is looking very dark, very cloudy.
Well, you know, there was a 20% chance of rain at the start of this race, so has that increased a little? And the teams have some of the best radars in the world. They will be able to see exactly where the rain is coming from, if it will fall over the circuit, if it will fall in time before the end of 71 laps. This is the Mexico City Grand Prix. It's lap 46 of 71. And right now, you have to say, Sam, Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari is the class of the field. He's got 6 seconds over his teammate Charles Leclerc. Ferrari, once again, trying to seal back-to-back 1-2 finishes.
They are indeed, and they're looking like that is the way it's going to be. It was 6.5 second gap to Charles Leclerc, 4.6 second gap back to Norris from the back end of the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. The Ferraris, what a crazy turn of pace since you look at Singapore, with Norris basically 30 seconds up the road from everybody, and the Ferrari's not really challenging Max Verstappen to now dominate the last 2 Grand Prix, and it's looking to be a double 1-2. They are firmly in the fight, I would say, for the Constructors' World Championship.
absolutely right now. I mean, if it were to end like this with the Ferrari 1-2 and Red Bull only scoring with Max Verstappen down in 6th, Red Bull would fall below Ferrari. Red Bull will fall to 3rd in the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari would move up to 2nd, and that would be a huge move. And this fight was still very much beyond between McLaren and Ferrari for the team's championship. Could well go down to the wire, but the way this race has run so far, I'd be too nervous to predict anything before the end of this Grand Prix, the 20th round of this longest Formula One season ever. And actually at the front, if we're looking at the top 3, they're all pretty nip and tuck in the times. Norris on that last lap around, stealing the fastest lap of the race so far, a couple of tenths quicker than Leclerc and Sainz ahead. Norris setting a 1:22 with Leclerc and Sainz both on a 1:25, but Carlos Sainz should have newer tyres than those. He pitted a little later than his teammate Charles Leclerc, so he could afford to manage his tyres a little more, because he should theoretically have some clean air in front of him, although they are and will catch a heavy traffic in the next lap or so, with Ocon, Stroll and Lawson just a few corners ahead of Sainz right now.
Yeah, that was 2 successive fastest laps in a row for Lando Norris. He'll want that extra point, because every point does matter in both World Championships available to McLaren as we go into the final 4 races of this Formula One season. Currently 4.297 seconds behind Charles Leclerc. I do think the Ferrari have got this covered off, but guaranteed Lando Norris will be doing everything to try and catch Charles Leclerc for 2nd place, because every position he gets is more points to that deficit that he's got to Max Verstappen. Behind Lando Norris, in a very low, well, not a lonely 4th place, Lewis Hamilton is 2 seconds behind, but 20 seconds behind is George Russell in the Mercedes.
And Max Verstappen in 6th right now. He's almost 11 seconds adrift as the McLaren of Oscar Piastri and the sole remaining Williams of Franco Colapinto go wheel to wheel, coming through the S's in the middle sector, both somehow keeping it on the road. Colapinto not willing to move over with Piastri behind. Indeed, Colapinto holding on for dear life. He has yet to pit in this race, still on that hard tyre, holding on.
He's got every right. He's driving well, he's defending well. Piastri will be frustrated, as Colapinto now does eventually pit. Now, does this mean that the Williams driver might try and put on a set of soft tyres? I don't think so. I think that's too long a stint. Let's see what he does. I think it'll be mediums, Harry, but we'll find out in just a second.
Well, 48 laps.
And it is the mediums. It is the mediums.
On a set of hards. And it's slow on the rear right, though, for Colapinto. The rear right wheel not coming off as quickly as they would have liked. That would have cost him a couple of seconds. He's fallen all the way down to 15th on the pit exit, only ahead of Sergio Perez and Zhou Guanyu. Just 17 runners left in this race. No Fernando Alonso, no Albon, no Tsunoda.
So, George, we are free to race here. Just make sure we give each other room.
That's George Russell's radio, free to race with Hamilton, his teammate, who is about a second behind at the moment. So Mercedes anticipating that battle to brew nicely as we get into the latter half of this Grand Prix right now. It's Sainz who leads by 6.4 seconds. Leclerc is 2nd, Norris 3rd with the fastest lap. Russell is 4th, Hamilton 5th. Verstappen pretty much in no man's land in 6th right now.
My opinion is that we are pushing too hard. Absolutely no need for the team.
Sainz there thinks we are pushing too hard. Both he and Leclerc. Last lap around for Sainz, a 1:27. Leclerc, a 1:26. Has he got a point there, Sam? Or is this Sainz saying, come on, let's play the team game here. I'm ahead. And I kind of want that win.
No, I think they've got to push, because Lando Norris is coming towards them a couple of tenths a lap at the moment. 3.8 seconds is the gap from Lando Norris to Charles Leclerc. They've got to go at this pace if they want to beat the McLaren. Interestingly as well, looking back at Max Verstappen, he's actually dropping away by a couple of tenths a lap to the back of Lewis Hamilton. So I think, to be honest, Max Verstappen is in a lonely 6th place for this Grand Prix.
just looking down through the entire field, everybody has now pitted with the exception of the Sauber of Valtteri Bottas, who is going very long indeed on the hard tyre. I imagine Sauber might be perhaps just seeing if maybe they can make a soft tyre go to the end, or if perhaps we get another safety car or perhaps a red flag or something to give them a cheap or free pit stop, and that would really hurtle Bottas up the order too, who started down in 15.
Lewis Hamilton now within DRS range of his teammate, and the DRS, as we know here, is very powerful. He's been chipping away, has Lewis Hamilton, on George Russell over the last 4 or 5 laps. The gap was 2.2 seconds. It's now just under half a second as they go braking into turn 4-5.
Hamilton applying the pressure to his Mercedes teammate, who Russell once again got the better of in qualifying. Hamilton actually had the better start to this race, got ahead of Russell. Russell made his way back through in the early stages, but these two really have been racing each other all race long. The two Mercedes not really quick enough to challenge the McLaren and the Ferraris ahead, and quicker than, well, right now, the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. And then it's a gap back to the two Haas cars, who are leading the charge for best of the rest right now. Magnussen on course for his one of his best results all year in 7th, 5.5 seconds in front of his teammate Nico Hülkenberg. Haas looking to set an advantage over RB for 6th in the Constructors' Championship. It may just be 6th, but that is big money for those teams a little further down the order. Lap 51 of 71, Sainz, Leclerc, Norris, the top 3, Russell, and this is the sound of Hamilton in 5th, closing up under braking down into the right-hander of turn 1, but he'll try and set it up into the next DRS zone. If Norris continues this pace, he's actually dropped to 4 seconds behind Charles Leclerc now. If the top 3 continue this pace, they'll potentially be a pit stop ahead of George Russell in 4th place, which would then give Lando Norris a free pit stop to then set a fastest lap and make sure he stays ahead with regards to the fastest lap. Bottas, by the way, just has now pitted, so everybody is pitted. He's bet out in 14th, and Sergio Perez in the other Red Bull, while his teammate Verstappen is struggling in this race, plus the penalty to boot, which he's already served. In no man's land in SIG, his teammate Perez down in 16th and has been lapped as well, along with Zhou Guanyu, and he's almost 2 seconds behind Esteban Ocon as well. It is a weekend to forget for Sergio Perez. As I've said that about the fastest lap, Franco Colapinto's just popped in and gone purple down in P13, taking that point away from Lando Norris. So I wonder how McLaren are going to react to this. Hamilton is pushing hard, though, to try and force his teammate Russell into some sort of mistake, locking up slightly the front left of Hamilton's Mercedes, coming in to the exit of the Forest Stadium now. They're making their way through the left-hander of turn 2, over the curbs, and the right-hander of turn 3. Run out slightly wide, keep all 4 wheels within the track limits. The white line defines the edge of the circuit, and it's another DRS trip down towards the left-hander of turn 4. But Russell, at the moment, has the gap enough to not have to defend too hard from Hamilton at this stage. Yeah, interesting that they've got 2 contrasting lines through the first sector. Lewis Hamilton wanting to turn in early and take more curb, but it looks like the car's bouncing around just a little bit, not absorbing the energy on the exits, as well as George Russell, who is not taking quite as much apex curb. Carlos Sainz is the leader in this race. He's just coming down to turn 1 now. He's going to get the help of DRS as well from Lance Stroll in front of him. He's just overtaken Liam Lawson, pitted and put a lap on Lawson in the RB. Lawson's down in 12th. So once Sainz gets through on Stroll, he should have some fairly clean air for a little while they've been battling the traffic. The gap between Sainz and Leclerc is about 5.2 seconds, just over that. Norris a further 4 seconds back, and just kind of maintained the same. Norris is right at the back, though, of the traffic queue. He's going to have a lot of cars to get through, so depending on where Norris catches the cars in front of him, he's going to lose some time here to his rivals, and he could do with catching up to Leclerc and trying to apply some pressure to try and scrape every point he can from this race. The two Mercedes still doing battle, the Silver Arrows, who are seeing out 2024. their last season as teammates, with Lewis Hamilton making his way to Ferrari next year. But Hamilton, who is applying the pressure to Russell, but Russell is not faltering at the moment.
So while we're enjoying this battle with the Mercedes, I'm just going to cast our minds back to the Ferrari drivers. There's 5.2 seconds now between Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, with Lando Norris still closing in at a couple of tenths a lap, now 3.7 seconds behind. But remember, we were discussing earlier what had happened earlier in the race. Why had Carlos Sainz said Charles is whatever he said? I think he said taking the mickey or something like that, Sam, didn't he? Or maybe not quite so polite language as that. At which point Leclerc suddenly started to drop back from Sainz, having been within a second of him. He was dropping back at half a second a lap. I asked Ferrari half an hour ago, did something happen? You know, was there an incident? Does Charles have damage? And if not, why has he dropped back so much? Half an hour ago. Normally Ferrari are very, very responsive on the WhatsApp channels, and they've not answered my question. So I suspect something did go on, and we're going to find out after the race, maybe.
I can't believe the TV cameras.
I can't either. I don't know what the director's doing. There must be onboard cameras. There must be, track side cameras. Can't believe they haven't picked up any incident.
Well, if we don't see it before the end of this race, we will make sure we catch a glimpse of it as well and bring you analysis of it in the Checkered Flag podcast, which will be on BBC Sounds shortly after the end of this race, where we will analyse everything we have seen from the Mexico City Grand Prix. It'll be certainly one that we remember. It's lap 55 of 71 though, so we've still got time in this race to go.
The Checkered Flag podcast could be about 3 hours long this evening. There's been so many talking points, haven't there? With Max Verstappen's 20-second penalty, with the Ferraris potentially, have they come together? What happened? Lando Norris in third place. Oh, it's been edge of his seat stuff.
It certainly has. That's the voice of the McLaren Formula E driver, Sam Bird, alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, is the BBC's F1 correspondent, Andrew Benson. You're listening to live coverage of the Mexico City Grand Prix. It's round 20 of the Formula One Championship. We've just got 4 rounds to go after this one. And right now, it's lap 55 of 71 of what has been really a bit of a roller coaster of a race. Right now, it's a Ferrari 1-2. Carlos Sainz, who started on pole, lost the lead initially to Verstappen, got it back, now leads his teammate Charles Leclerc by 5.5 seconds. Then comes Lando Norris, who is looking to close the gap slightly to his teammate Max Verstappen in the drivers to his rival Max Verstappen in the drivers' championship. Norris is third. Then comes a brilliant battle that has been going on for the last few laps and just got almost very, very close indeed between the two Mercedes. Russell ahead of Hamilton in 4th and 5th as they were fighting down towards the left-hander of turn 4. Hamilton almost pushing Russell out of turn 5, with the Mercedes team, including team principal Toto Wolff, just keeping a close eye on this battle. They've been told they are free to race, but just keep it clean. Right now, though, we're seeing some beautiful driving from both Russell and Hamilton as they come through the Forosol Stadium once again. Russell ahead of Hamilton, but we're approaching that long start-finish straight with the DRS.
Yeah, Hamilton made a small mistake in turn 15 there, just had a little bit of understeer, and he's dropped a little bit further back than what he would have wanted to. Okay, he's going to have another bite of the cherry out of turn 2, but not where he wanted to be going into turn 1.
No, and it really has been the Mercedes just kind of left on their own for the majority of this race, hasn't it? Really battling each other.
Yeah, well, they've got no threat from behind. Max Verstappen is 12 seconds back in 6th place, and they're 26 seconds behind Lando Norris now. I don't know what the pit stop loss is, Harry. What is it?
21 to 22
21
seconds.
to 22. So I wouldn't be surprised if Lando Norris can't get onto the back of Charles Leclerc, then we might see Lando Norris come in for fastest lap. Oscar Piastri now overtakes Nico Hülkenberg for 8th place.
Yeah, Piastri is rather upsetting the Haas drivers' run of form right now, although they would still take the 2 points for Nico Hülkenberg. And Magnussen has got 8 seconds over Oscar Piastri. Magnussen currently in 7th. If he finishes in 7th, that will be his best Grand Prix result all year. Will bag a huge amount of points for the Dane, who will be leaving the team at the end of the year. Brand new driver lineup for Haas in next year, with the rookie Oliver Behrman, who we've already seen a couple of times this year in the Ferrari in Saudi Arabia and in Baku 2 in the Haas, and he'll team up alongside Esteban Ocon, who we've not seen really much of at all in this race. He's currently in the Alpine. He's down in 15th ahead of Perez, who is not making any inroads whatsoever. We do believe Perez has a bit of damage though to his the right-hand side of his car. He's languishing down in 16th, only ahead of Joe Guan Yu. If you're wondering where Fernando Alonso is in his 400th Grand Prix weekend, well, unfortunately he retired fairly early on in this race with issues. We're not quite sure what those issues are at this moment, but he will not see the checkered flag on his 400th weekend. Alex Albon and the Williams and Yuki Tsunoda came together in turn 1 of lap 1. Also, that incident involved Pierre Gasly. He managed to leave that incident unscathed. Not so was the case for Tsunoda and Albon, pretty much out on the spot. As we come round the final corner to start another lap, it's lap 58 of 71.
Lando Norris now 2.3 seconds behind Charles Leclerc. I think Lando Norris is going for P2 here. He's going to get his head down and try and get the Ferrari driver.
He has to. He knows. He'll be told surely that Verstappen is down in 6th, but Norris is going to have a little bit of traffic though to contend with as well, with Liam Lawson in the RB. Has to sit behind Lawson through turns 2 and 3, slides out of the exit of 3. Lawson does move to the side. Norris will get the aid of DRS, gets through on Lawson, cuts back onto the racing line. That would have cost Norris a little bit of time. The gap at the moment, just under 2.5 seconds. Lap 58 of 71. If Norris can pick up another couple of points here and split the Ferraris, that could be the crucial moment to keep this championship rolling on for another race weekend. At the moment it is going Norris's way. Verstappen hit with a 20-second time penalty. That was made up of 2 10-second time penalties. He's languishing down in 6th. It's a decent recovery after that long penalty in the pits. Right now he's almost 12 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton and not making any inroads. Magnussen is the next car behind Verstappen, but he's pretty much been kept at bay at around the 7-second mark.
Lando Norris now 1.4 seconds behind Charles Leclerc. This could be a battle. There's an Aston Martin between them, get my words right. Between them, though. And who's that? Is that? Yeah, that's Lance Stroll, obviously, because Fernando Alonso is out of the race. And Lando Norris gets ahead of the Aston Martin. Now it's a straight fight to see who's going to finish second in the Grand Prix.
Norris is looking stronger here, but how much is Leclerc? Perhaps maybe saving his tyres, I imagine, not so much, because he would have pushed on by now.
Well, once you get within DRS range, it's so powerful that you're able to stay. You are able to stay there, bar a mistake from Lando Norris.
Yeah, the DRS gives the car behind about a 7/10 of a second gain. It's extra 22 kph.
We need your best driving now. Let's go.
Leclerc's engineer Brian Botzi, we need your best driving now, let's go. That is what he has been told. The pressure is on. The gap has closed to a second between Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris. Leclerc trying to back up a Ferrari 1-2 here in Mexico, but Lando Norris, well, whilst the podium would be good, he needs an extra spot to keep eating into Max Verstappen's championship lead. Verstappen right now stands to finish down in 6th behind the 2 Mercedes cars. Russell and Hamilton still fighting it out. Hamilton sliding the Mercedes out of turn 5, still cannot find a way past his teammate. These two have been battling for the last 5 or 6 laps now.
Absolutely. Charles Leclerc's responded in that last sector and a half. Now pulled a couple of tenths out of Lando Norris. Gap now 1.3 seconds.
Ferrari looking to win here in Mexico for the first time since 1990, with Alain Prost at the wheel of the Scarlet Ferrari on that occasion. Can Carlos Sainz do it all these years later?
You weren't even a thing back then, were you?
No, 7 years.
No, I was 3.
Until I became a thing.
3, yeah.
Well, you brought it up.
Yeah, well.
But that doesn't matter, because the brilliance of that drive is that we can all appreciate what it was today. Very different drive for Prost on that occasion. Came from down in 13th to take the win that time around. Sainz, though, started on pole position, lost it early doors and has managed to gain it back. But we'll see, he's still got 11 laps to go. So too Hamilton, much closer to Russell this time, almost alongside as they feed out of the exit of turn 5. But then it really is just one line through the S's, especially when it's your teammate. Hamilton's not going to try anything being stupid with his teammate coming through the middle sector. They've been told to race cleanly, that he'll want fourth.
Yeah, he'll want fourth, but he's quicker at almost the wrong places. It looks like George Russell has got him quite covered easily going into turn 1. Hamilton definitely quicker with the use of DRS into 4, 5 and 6, but he can't overtake that. What else is happening right now, Harry? 1.2 seconds, the gap between Leclerc and Norris, that looks to have stabilised. I think Leclerc might have that covered off. Will Norris on the second last lap pit, do you reckon, if he's not close enough? I think that's probably what would happen.
And get the fastest lap point, quite possibly. At the moment, his gap is 30 seconds over George Russell. The pit loss 21 to 22, so he would come out in time and he could stick a soft tyre on and warm it up and do one more lap. But is it an unnecessary risk? That'll be the question.
Yeah, but it's quite a gap to George Russell. 30.6 seconds currently is the gap to fourth place. And we were on about the last win in Mexico for Ferrari was 1990. I believe our esteemed colleague here, that was his favourite ever Formula One car. Is that right, Benny? Your favourite ever Formula One car was the 1990 Ferrari?
I would say the best looking Formula One car.
Best looking Formula One car.
Well, right now, one Ferrari Formula One car is coming under a huge amount of pressure. Norris is within a second now, chasing down Leclerc for second place. Norris, who is trying to keep his championship hopes alive. Charles Leclerc is still mathematically in with a shot of the title, but he's way back in third at the moment in terms of the Drivers' Championship. Right now, though, this is a battle for second place in this race. Carlos Sainz is up the road by that 7.5 seconds. This is the closest Lando Norris has been all race long. Out through turn 6 as they make their way through the S's in the middle sector. Keep it nice, neat and tidy through this. The next overtaking point could be into the right-hander of turn 12. You get another aid of DRS there. That's the drag reduction system. When you're within the car and within a second of the car in front, the rear wing flap can open and gives you around about a 7/10 second advantage and reduces the drag on your car. He doesn't make the move there, but he closes in once again through the Forest Stadium, surrounded by hundreds and thousands of people enjoying 20 Formula One cars racing, now down to 17 cars in this race. No Alonso, no Albon, no Tsunoda, and we've got a Ferrari. It's Charles Leclerc around the final corner, and he hasn't been able to keep it on the track. He slides out of the final corner, deep into the runoff, kicks up the dust, and Lando Norris is through and up into second place.
Big news for the World Championship. Lando Norris up to second place and with the fastest lap. He will collect 19 points to Max Verstappen's 8. That's an 11-point swing for the Englishman.
And that is exactly kind of what he needed to do this race weekend if he's to keep this championship alive. It came into this weekend 57 points, the gap. That has now come down to 46. What happened to Charles Leclerc in the final corner, Sam?
Just too wide, Harry, on the dust and no control. You'll see here, no traction out there, Charles.
Kicked up the dust, was lucky to keep it out of the wall. But Lando Norris saw it all unfold. He would have had the DRS anyway, really applying the pressure, and that was a save from Leclerc. That was heading for the wall. He just about managed to keep it pointing the right direction, but Leclerc has rejoined in third, 2.7 seconds back now. Norris up into second. He would score big points with that and the extra point for the fastest lap as well, which he has just taken back.
That is unless Charles Leclerc now pits and does exactly what we thought Lando Norris would do if he was in third.
Carlos Sainz does lead this race, by the way. We've not really seen much of him in the Ferrari. He's 7.8 seconds up the road. Lando Norris is second, having just managed to have probably one of the easiest moves of his career. Up into second with Charles Leclerc running wide out of the final corner. Manages to hold on to third. What will Leclerc do? Russell has actually just dipped under 30 seconds now behind Leclerc. Norris saying the wind has picked up on the racetrack. I wonder, maybe did the wind have anything to do with Leclerc's mistake there in the final corner?
I think he was just half a car width too wide on the exit at the Forest and that was enough, especially with worn hard compound tyres. It's and with the power of these cars as well, a little gust of wind maybe, but yeah, definitely offline slightly.
I'll tell you what, Kevin Magnussen is 5.5 seconds back from Max Verstappen and is quicker the last lap around as well. A 1:21.2 for Verstappen, a 1:27 for Magnussen. It's not massive inroads, but it's just something to keep an eye on. Well, lap 65 on 71. Verstappen certainly not moving forward in this race. Currently stuck in 6th, 12 seconds back from Lewis Hamilton. That's the sound you can hear right now. He's been stuck behind his teammate for pretty much the last 10 laps now. Cannot find a way through. The two Mercedes dicing with each other over 4th and 5th, and I think Sam Charleclerc was just told on the radio, or said on the radio, to think about the fastest lap. So, well, you beat him to the punch on that one.
Absolutely, I think that's the right thing for Ferrari to do at this point. I think he's resigned to 3rd place in this Grand Prix. He has a big buffer. Come in, put a set of softs on and go for that fastest lap.
Lap 65 of 71, Sainz leads Norris, leads Leclerc. That's your podium as it currently stands. Then comes Russell and Hamilton, still dicing it out. They're just making their way down to turn 1 now. Verstappen is 6th, 7th for Magnussen, Piastri, Hulkenberg, Gasly, the top 10. To the inside of turn 1, Russell defending from Hamilton, who shoots back to the racing line. He takes that line through turns 2 and 3, gets a slightly better run out of the exit, but no, he clouded the curb and that ruined all momentum. He'll get the DRS once again. Russell will hide the inside line coming into the left-hander of turn 4. Will Hamilton risk it round the outside? No. Tucks back underneath, tries and gets a tighter exit out of 5. Has to follow though through the right-hander of 6, and then you're back into the middle sector where overtaking is near on impossible.
I've got to say, George Russell has done a really strong job on this stint on the hard compound tyres, considering if anybody's been able to watch, the front left-hand portion of his front wing has significant damage. He must be losing a ton of downforce on those upper planes that seem to be sort of hanging a little bit lower than the other side. So for sure he's got more understeer than Lewis Hamilton, which is why he's suffering in the slower speed.
Mercedes having the fight of the century here between Russell and Hamilton. They are not giving an inch, and so far it has all been nice and clean and good scrapping between the two. I reckon they'll be rather enjoying this and equally frustrated as well. Down the main straight once again, Russell to the inside. This time Hamilton has the momentum with the DRS round the outside. Can he get it stopped in time? Yes, he can. Over turn 2, Hamilton finally through on George Russell as they peel down towards turn 4. Can Russell find a way back and close in? Under braking he can, but I think Hamilton can now finally hold this one. The 7-time champion, the man that has won around this circuit twice, now finally back in front of his teammate and up into 4th.
We're seeing a juicy battle here between the rookies, Franco Colapinto and Liam Lawson, touching on the exit of turn 1. Liam Lawson defending, going to the inside. Franco Colapinto sweeping round the outside, and they kind of both just run into each other at the apex of turn 2.
Yeah, Lawson was really trying to show Colapinto where to go on that front and into the runoff area, but Colapinto wasn't having any of it, and as they jinked to the left hand of turn 2, well, Lawson kept on turning into the left, otherwise he would have been shown the grass, and as a result he has had front wing damage, and that has caused Lawson to pit and change front wing as well. He'll go on the soft tyre at the end, so Lawson might be one that could nick the fastest lap.
I honestly had nowhere to go.
That's what Lawson says on the mat. He now drops all the way to the back. This race actually a bit of a disaster for RB, who will fall further behind Haas. RB lost 6th place in the Constructors last time out to Haas, and Haas at the moment looking set to score with both their drivers, Magnussen and Hulkenberg, well inside the top 10. Looks like Colapinto might have got away with that one as well. Could easily pick up a puncture there, but seems to be living to fight another day. He's in 12th at the moment, ahead of Bottas, Ocon. Perez is in 15th, Jones 16th, Lawson now the final runner in this race. Back up front, the gap between now Carlos Sainz, who leads this race, and Lando Norris is 6.8 seconds. Norris still has that fastest lap point. Leclerc, who fell behind after a mistake in the final corner, is now in 3rd, a further 6 seconds behind. Was told and said, well, shall we think about going for fastest lap? They haven't bitten on that one yet. It is lap 68 of 71. Hamilton, after a ferocious battle with George Russell, has now finally got in front of his teammate. Hamilton ahead of Russell, and Max Verstappen 10 seconds back in 6th.
I think if it doesn't happen this lap, Harry, it'll happen next lap for Charles Leclerc to box for a set of soft tyres. We're looking at Carlos Sainz, driven superbly this weekend, hasn't he? He's pretty much been out front from the get-go. Decisive move on Max Verstappen in the early phases of the Grand Prix, and nobody's been anywhere near him all race long.
No, it has been faultless from Carlos Sainz so far. Just has to keep it neat and tidy.
Yeah, that might be debris at turn 12.
I guess he's the same idiot that crashed again.
You'll watch the highlights later.
Yeah, I'm watching it now.
And that was Sergio Perez talking to his engineer Hugh Bird, referring to, I think, Liam Lawson on that occasion. There is a bit of debris around turn 12. I think it might just be either side of the racing line, but certainly that could easily be collected by somebody. But that just almost highlights Perez's woeful day, that he's just watching the big screens as he makes his way around, down in 15th spot. Another fastest lap, though, for Lando Norris, who's still got life in his tyres. A 1:19.6 last lap around. Compare that to Sainz with a 1:23. But I feel like Sainz is just trying to bring this home now, to try and secure what could be his second win of the season. And in what will be perhaps a bittersweet moment, Sainz will leave the team at the end of the year to make way for Lewis Hamilton. Sainz will go to Williams, where the opportunities to get podiums, pole positions and wins will not be anywhere near as regular as they are with the Scuderia he has been with for the last few years. His teammate fell down to third, and we debated this, Sam, about whether they would go for fastest lap. They've got a nearly 30-second gap to Hamilton behind, and they are going to pit Charles Leclerc for the fastest lap. That's going to rather ruin Lando Norris's day, but it's already been ruined because Liam Lawson just nicked it down in 17th. It's lap 70 of 71. The penultimate lap of this race. Sainz, Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton, Russell, the top five. Verstappen is 6th. Magnussen, 4 seconds behind Verstappen in 7th. Piastri, another couple of seconds back in 8th. Then comes Hülkenberg. Gasly holding on to the final point for Alpine. That is your top 10. Then comes Lance Stroll. Franco Colapinto is 12th for Williams, ahead of the Sauber of Valtteri Bottas. Esteban Ocon is 14th, ahead of Sergio Perez, 15th. Zhou Guanyu, 16th, and Liam Lawson having to change his front wing last lap around, forward all the way to the back, but he put the soft tyre on and has just stolen the fastest lap. But that is exactly what Charles Leclerc has just done. He has the gap to stay in third place once he comes out of the pits. So let's see what Leclerc can do once you put on a new set of softs. Well, there's no doubt Leclerc will take the fastest lap, but Perez is going for it as well. We're going to get a fastest lap shootout at the end of this race. So why is Perez going for the fastest lap?
Because he doesn't want Ferrari to get the fastest lap. So the extra lap going to Ferrari sends them another point clear of Red Bull in the constructors. So that's why Sergio Perez is going for it. Interestingly as well, Charles Leclerc did it on that lap so that Lando Norris couldn't do the same thing a lap later, which is why they left to the second last lap, giving Charles Leclerc one attempt at the fastest lap. And we're now on, Harry, the final lap of the Grand Prix.
We are indeed. Right now, Ferrari would look to go ahead of Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship by around about 24 points, if my maths is correct. I'm sure we'll double check that once the checkered flag flies. And you can hear the crowd, which, as well as being full of Sergio Perez and Red Bull fans, well, they cannot cheer much for their home hero this afternoon. A disaster of a race for Perez, who sits plumb last right now, going for the fastest lap to try and take it away from Charles Leclerc and Ferrari if they get it. But for Ferrari and Carlos Sainz, it has been a superb weekend. 2 laps in qualifying that were both capable of pole position. He feeds his way through the right-hander of turn 10 for the final time, arcs his way through the left-hander of 11 down towards the right-hander of turn 12. He'll be greeted to applause and cheers through the Forosol Stadium for the final time. And for the Spaniard, who will depart Ferrari at the end of the year to join Williams, he makes way for Lewis Hamilton. But Carlos Sainz will finish the year with at least one more win to his name. Round the final corner, Carlos Sainz wins the Mexico City Grand Prix. Lando Norris crosses the line to come home in second and closes the gap to Max Verstappen Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship and keeps his hopes alive for one more race weekend. Charles Leclerc, having stuck on the soft tyre, is also going to come home on the podium. Can he nick the fastest lap bonus point as well? It won't go the way of Norris. He won't go the extra point for him, but 18 points will be enough for the time being. Leclerc across the line takes the fastest lap as well and makes it a Ferrari 1-3. But in Mexico City, it is the scarlet red car on the top step of the podium here in Mexico for the first time since 1990, and it's been done by Carlos Sainz, who makes it his second win this season. Hamilton fourth, Russell will come home in fifth as Max Verstappen crosses the line only in sixth, Magnussen seventh, Piastri eighth, Hülkenberg ninth, Pierre Gasly steals the final point in 10th, Perez will come across the line 17th and last in his home Grand Prix, attempting to go for the fastest lap and he didn't get it. Salt into the wound for the Mexican, but Sam, for Ferrari, for Carlos Sainz, for Fred Vasseur, what a moment this is.
Yes, this is masterclass, Carlos. Dominant weekend, un mastino. Good job. Yes. Yes.
Make a good weekend, Carlos.
Thank you. Oh, this feels good. Oh, feels good. Thank you, guys. Forza Ferrari. Gracias, Mexico.
Yes, stunning weekend from Carlos Sainz. Dominant race, and thoroughly deserved. It's a shame that over the next couple of years he potentially doesn't have the equipment underneath him to fight for these kind of victories, because he's proven today what a class act he really is.
As they pull in to the 1, 2, 3 slots, which for Mexico are situated right in the epicenter of the Foro Sol Stadium, it will be Carlos Sainz on top with that Ferrari 1-3. They will go above Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship. So big gains for Ferrari, but Andrew Benson, what has this done for the Drivers' Championship with Norris in second?
Well, Norris is now 47 points behind Verstappen. It's almost the average that he needed to close in on Verstappen each race, so it's a big step forward for him. Although Verstappen in 6th place, that's not a bad save with a 20-second total penalty. Constructors wise though, it's made a big difference. McLaren are still leading, but Ferrari are only 29 points behind them now with 4 races to go, and 25 points ahead of Red Bull, who won 4 of the first 5 races and looked completely dominant at that point, look like they're going to finish 3rd in the Constructors, and I think Ferrari have got a real chance of winning the Constructors' Championship. If they do, it will be their first since 2008. If McLaren do, it will be their first since 1998.
Wow. And there are the cheers, though. That is for Carlos Sainz, who stands tall on top of his car and is greeted by his mechanics and engineers into a big hug and a cheer. He's also been voted driver of the day, and I think that is fair enough.
It's not surprising at all, is it? He was the driver of the day. But what a race that was, Harry. I mean, what a race. The first 10-15 laps, we could barely take a breath.
That was an incredible Mexico City Grand Prix, actually, and in the end, Sainz ahead of Norris, ahead of Leclerc. That is your podium, your 1, 2, 3. Leclerc finishing 3rd in Mexico for the 2nd year in a row after that mistake in the final corner, losing the car, getting on to the dirty side of the track, almost finding the wall. That was all Lando Norris needed to make his way through and up into 2nd. I think Leclerc, who was looking a little stony-faced, might be ruining that one, but Norris was closing in on him as well. Good results for the 2 Haas cars further back. Magnussen 7th, Hülkenberg in 9th. That extends their advantage over RB 6th in the Constructors' Championship. Indeed, RB failing to score with either car. Tsunoda out, Lawson with front wing damage at the end, coming home in 16th ahead of Sergio Perez in the Red Bull, down in 17th and registered as last. Now, we've still not seen any incident that happened between Sainz and Leclerc. And I don't know about you, but there was just a little exchange, a little moment that we just saw between Sainz and Leclerc.
Looked frosty, didn't it?
A little frosty.
Really frosty. I can't wait to see just what happened between those two. It was early on in the race. Charles Leclerc was catching Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz then had a radio message saying, what is Charles doing? Is he taking the mickey? And then all of a sudden, Charles Leclerc backed off. We don't know what's happened, but for sure, somewhere on an onboard of Charles Leclerc's car or Carlos Sainz's, we're going to see something and we'll understand just why the Ferrari drivers aren't quite best friends at the moment.
Well, let's hear from our top three. They're going to be talking to former Ferrari driver and still part of the Ferrari team, Marc Genet.
Charles Leclerc, podium. I know it was a difficult race. You had to manage temperatures at the beginning. You had a big moment with Norris. How was the race? How difficult was it?
It was a difficult one. On the first stint, it was all about trying to manage the temperatures, which was quite difficult. But at the end, we did the best race we could do today. The whole weekend I've been a little bit on the back foot. So third place was the best we could achieve on my side today. Amazing race by Carlos today, and it's a good weekend overall for the team, which is positive.
You managed to do the fastest lap at the end. Every point counts for the Constructors' Championship. How Ferrari's back? We've been doing very well. Ferrari's been doing very well lately. What do you think is the teamwork? How come it has improved so much lately?
I know we are working super well as a team. I think it's been quite a few races now that we are coming back to the level we should be at, and it's amazing to see. Obviously, the Constructors is still our target, and with weekends like this, we are getting closer to it. So I hope we can continue in that direction and get that Constructors title, which is very important.
Thank you, and good luck for the podium.
Gracias.
Charles Leclerc, third place man, nicked the fastest lap bonus point right on the final lap. Here's second place, Lando Norris.
Lando, that was an eventful race. Fighting with at the beginning with Max, then with Charles. How happy are you with P2? Everybody's delighted with the race you did.
It was a very tough race. The first few laps, a lot of it was just trying to stay in the race and avoid any crashes. But Carlos drove a very good race, so congratulations to Carlos and Ferrari. They were very quick today, so I tried my best. And a big thanks to all the fans. The fans make it very enjoyable here, so a big thank you to everyone.
Tell us through the overtaking with Max. Okay, that was of course very polemic. He got 2 penalties, but let us know from your car, how did you prepare for that overtaking?
I knew what to expect. I didn't want to expect such a thing because I respect Max a lot as a driver, but I was ready to expect something like this, and this is not very clean driving in my opinion, but I avoided it, and it was a good race.
And the championship hopes, I guess they are more open than ever. You got many points to Max. How is it looking for the next races?
I just keep my head down, I'm doing my best. We're doing a very good job as a team. I think today we were probably the quickest in the end. But we'll keep our head down. That's all I can do for now. We focus on ourselves, and we keep pushing.
Well done. Well done.
Championship hopes still alive for Lando Norris, finishing second for McLaren, their first podium of this track since Ayrton Senna finished third in 1991. But here's your winner.
Carlos, you are the king of Mexico. You are the real... Let us know how did it, I'm going to talk about the overtaking later on, but first, what is the feeling to be inside here with all those fans? You can also answer in Spanish if you want.
Gracias, México. Yeah. It's incredible. It's incredible to see this crowd. I've been feeling their support all week. I feel like I have a lot of fan base here in Mexico, and they've gave me a lot of strength to do the weekend that I've done. Honestly, I really wanted this one. I really needed it also for myself. I wanted to get it done. I've been saying for a while I wanted one more win before leaving Ferrari, and to do it here in front of this mega crowd is incredible. Now 4 races left. I want to enjoy as much as possible, and if another one comes, I will go for it.
You did such an amazing overtaking on Max. Tell us, how did you prepare that overtaking? How confident were you that you could succeed on it?
I didn't prepare it, to be honest. I was just a bit annoyed at the start and having lost position to him. And I said I need to surprise him one way or another, because Max is super difficult to pass. He's proven it many, many times. And I was a bit far back, but I said I have nothing to lose. I'm just going to send one down the inside. And I've been very confident under breaking into turn 1 this weekend, and I knew I could make it.
Last question in Spanish. Hay muchos tifosis de Ferrari aquí en México, aparte de Checo, también luego por Ferrari. La última victoria fue en el año 1990 de Ferrari, es la 5ª de Ferrari aquí. ¿Cómo es que has mejorado tanto? Eras muy confidente, tenías mucha seguridad que ibas a ganar. ¿Cómo te sentías que ibas a ganar? ¿Cómo lo sabías?
Sí, he notado todo el fin de semana que podía ser mi fin de semana. También tengo a toda mi familia aquí viéndome este fin de semana y quería hacerlo delante de todos ellos. Y luego pues también sintiendo todo el apoyo de esta afición, que es increíble. Si hubiese tenido que
well, Sam, can you translate for us?
Ganar una carrera más con Ferrari hubiese sido México.
My Spanish is not that good. I got the gracias bit, but the rest of it, unfortunately, my schooling didn't cover Spanish.
I speak a little bit of Spanish. He's basically just saying, the same things as he said in English. He's had a great weekend. He loves the fans here in Mexico, and so on and so forth.
Thank you, Benson, the Formula One Spanish correspondent for the BBC. But, I mean, what a win for Carlos Sainz, that, and it's just so bittersweet though, isn't it, Sam? He at least gets one more win before I would expect a prolonged period of no winning.
Well, on the form that we've just seen, Ferrari, you'd say they've got 4 more opportunities. There could be 4 more Ferrari wins. That could be another couple for Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. They are, make no mistake, they are firmly in the hunt for the Constructors' Championship.
The other thing that this weekend seems to say, we've got the green room coming up. Do you want to listen to them for a second?
Yeah, let's have a listen. This is the cool-down room. Leclerc and Norris in there at the moment. Oh, and they've just faded it down.
Your pace at the end was crazy. What the wind changed, and it just seemed to...
Well, we'll just pick up on that. They're just talking about the wind changing and Leclerc's pace being a little bit crazy, and they're now just getting a view of the Turn 1 carnage.
I wonder if they'll show the replay of the incident with Norris and Verstappen, and neither of them will say anything in here.
I imagine they will.
I think Norris won't, but I think Leclerc might.
They're just watching Tsunoda go flying in Turn 1. That seems like a lifetime ago now, doesn't it? And here we go then, as Norris leans forward.
Oh my God, says Charles Leclerc, watching that incident.
Here they go, getting another look into Turn 8. Norris is actually just sitting there chuckling away.
He turned to Leclerc and smiled.
Leclerc with a little bit of a grimace. Not giving too much away there in the cool-down room, are they? And, Carlos Sainz yet to turn up. He's still enjoying his battle. And, for Ferrari, this was a major day for them.
It was, and what the point I was going to make was, Verstappen's finished 6th today, but he wasn't as quick as the Mercedes. He's clearly not. There's been a number of races now where he's basically been slower than Ferrari and McLaren. So actually, Norris has made the gap in the championship that he needs this race, but this is encouraging for McLaren that they could get 2 cars, their 2 cars and the 2 Ferraris between, ahead of Verstappen in future races.
Could Norris have won this race in any respect if it was run differently? If he hadn't had the long skirmish with Verstappen at the start, could he have kept Sainz within reach earlier?
In hindsight, if he'd stayed ahead of Leclerc, potentially. I see the unfolding of this race slightly differently to Benny. I think that Ferrari are the clear and obvious winners leaving Mexico. I'd say the damage limitation from Red Bull, and I'd say that McLaren will be pleased but not overly pleased. I think that they would have wanted a bigger point deficit to Max Verstappen, given the fact that he had a 20-second penalty.
Well, look, we have got so much to get into, and we will do that on the Checkered Flag podcast, which will be available a little later on this evening and in the morning on BBC Sounds and wherever you get your podcasts. As the Forosol Stadium begins to erupt, the grandstand gets emptied and the fans all fall out below the podium to see our top three. Carlos Sainz has won the Mexico City Grand Prix ahead of Lando Norris in second, who closes the gap to Max Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship, now just 47 points. Charles Leclerc third, Max Verstappen only down in sixth. My thanks to Andrew Benson, to Sam Bird. I've been Harry Benjamin. We will be back next week in Brazil. We carry straight on through, and it's another sprint weekend, so it is relentless run to the end of the year. Stephen Nolan is up next after the news.
This is BBC